Time is such a weird concept to me. It happens no matter what, always has been going on, and forever will, even when we as humans are no longer here on this planet. It's almost like a currency of sorts. You can spend time doing things such as playing video games, hanging out with friends, or watching a video like you are doing so right now. When you spend time doing something, you will never get that time back ever. So I appreciate you giving me yours by listening to what I have to say. But why am I talking about time? Why am I sitting here getting philosophical for no reason? Why am I talking to someone whose face I have never seen before, whose voice I'll never hear, whose personality I will never get to know? Well, it's because it has been exactly 10 years since 2014. In the grand scheme of things, 10 years is so insignificant. It's like comparing a grain of sand to the beach. But to us humans, it's a scale of time where everything can change for the better or worse.
What the fuck is what?
But on August 8th, 2014, I think most of us can agree that what happened that day was for the better. It has now officially been 10 years since Five Nights at Freddy's hit the internet and changed indie horror and gaming forever. Created by Scott Cawthon, Five Nights at Freddy's became an instant sensation among online spaces and would evolve into many games, spin-offs, novels, a movie, and most importantly, a thriving community filled with millions of fans with an undying love for the franchise. But how did we get to this point? What happened in the last 10 years that was able to bring FNAF into the spotlight of being an easily recognizable icon in gaming and keep that position into the present and inevitable future? Which strings was Scott Cawthon pulling to continue the momentum of his games and make them more relevant than ever before? Well, that's what I would like to talk about today in this video. From hoaxes to rumors, teasers and trailers, creators to controversy, and everything in between, this is a comprehensive retrospective of Five Nights at Freddy's and its 10-year history. But first, we need to go back further than 2014. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." Oh shit, wait, that's the wrong script. Born on June 4th, 1978 in Bell County, Texas, Scott Braden Cawthon had a very humble beginning with his earlier works. Now, that little joke of me reading the first verse from the Bible wasn't exactly just out of the blue, because Scott was raised as a devout Christian, and even into the start of his game development career, he was creating Christian adventure games. In 1994, Scott created his first video game called Doofus, using a software his mom had bought him when he was just 13 called Click and Play, which was a debut product from a pretty unknown computer software company at the time called ClickTeam, which will become very important later. Either way, just looking one look at this game nowadays and yeah, it hasn't exactly aged the best. But Scott was still determined to pursue this career path, which is why in 1996 he would attend the Art Institute of Houston, learning how to create computer models and graphics. However, in his spare time, he would continue using tools provided by ClickTeam, another one of which was released in the same year called Click and Create. From 1996 to 2002, Scott would actually have a decent amount of work put on his portfolio. During those 6 years, he joined a Christian animation group called Hope Animation and created 5 different fully animated short films. These were each titled respectfully Beak's Vacation, Beak's Adventure, Beak's Snowball Fight, Bird Village the Movie, and Bird Village Second Nest. These films were focused on a group of birds, big shocker, named Beak, Seabill, Stork, and Camo. Most of these films were lost media for quite some time due to the fact that they were actually only put on VHS and presumably not a lot were sold. Quite recently actually, 2 VHS tapes were found. Bird Village Volume 1, which was made in 1999 and contained Beak's Adventure and Vacation, as well as stories from Bird Village, which was made in 2001, containing Beak's Vacation again, Beak's Snowball Fight, and Bird Village the Movie. Now the only one that remains lost is Second Nest. I couldn't find any information on whether or not these films were made by Scott himself or with some help from Hope Animation. Either way, this is seriously impressive at the time, especially considering that this was when CGI was just starting to take off. Now all these films are closer to resembling something along the confines of N64 graphics, where he truly started to see Scott's signature style, would be in his first professional video game called Iffermoon. Created in 2008 and being able to be downloaded on Scott's website scottgames.com, Iffermoon was definitely a product of its time. Being a 2D side-scrolling RPG, this was far from being the last type of game Scott would create. Just 3 years later, on June 13th, 2011, he would create The Pilgrim's Progress, the video game. The Pilgrim's Process, the video game, actually has quite a long history with Cawthon. In 2005, he created an animated film called The Pilgrim's Progress, which is based off of a book of the same name by John Bunyan, originally published in 1678. The novel follows a man named Christian who travels from his home of the City of Destruction to the Celestial City, which is supposed to be symbolic of a journey from the overworld to heaven. This story must have had a large impact on Scott's life because, well, he created both an animated film and video game based off it. This was quite impressive for a person to do by himself, but just a year later, Scott released The Desolate Hope. Being a sequel to The Desolate Room, I would say that The Desolate Hope was Scott Cawthon's magnum opus before, well, there's so much to talk about this game that I think I can make an entire video on it by itself in the future, but just know that when you take a look at this game, you are going to see a lot of similarities in its future works, and man, some of the areas in this game are just so uncanny, yet also so beautiful at the same time. The amount of detail in the environments are just outstanding. Also, how the fuck is this supposed to be related to Christianity? Now, judging by the fact that I called this game Scott Cawthon's magnum opus before FNAF, you'd think that this game was pretty successful, but that would be far from the truth. Up until this point, and even for a couple of more years, all the projects I had just mentioned were all self-funded by Scott himself, and he had gained a very minimal return from them, besides being well received by a small number of people who played his games. This lack of success and financial gain was really getting to Scott. In an interview held by Joe Morgan, a writer for the Christian gaming blog Geeks Under Grace, Scott Cawthon says, and I quote, "Despite good reviews, my Christian projects were all financial failures. I came to a point where I was very disillusioned and frustrated with God. Actually, it was more like a broken heart. I felt like I had squandered so many years of my life. Years that could have been spent going back to college, but instead were spent on working on Christian projects that had went nowhere. I came to the conclusion that I could not have failed so miserably unless God himself had been holding me down. Either God didn't exist or God hated me. I didn't know which was worse." Knowing that he had to feed himself, his wife, their 2 kids, he stopped creating passion projects for a bit and instead created really cheap computer titles as well as free mobile games with ad revenue and download fees being the main source of income from them. These mobile games were really bottom of the barrel stuff though. Like, I'm talking about those casino slot machine simulation games. Yeah, he was making those. The mobile games were only bringing in $40 to $50 at most each month according to him. So on top of developing mediocre games, he took to programming and retail jobs at Target and Dollar General. Okay, this is kind of a side tangent, but imagine meeting Scott Cawthon at fucking Target when he was a cashier. Using the little spare time Scott had in 2013, he would eventually create Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. and submit it through the now defunct Steam Greenlight program. Chipper & Sons was meant to be a sort of resource management game. However, before the game was even available to be played, there's already a mountain of criticism being thrown at Scott, mostly because they found the characters to be really unsettling. Even with this criticism, Scott would continue creating games for a little longer going into 2014. Most notably, there is no pause button, which happens to be his profile picture on YouTube, and Sit and Survive, which was released on May 8th, 2014. However, that same day, a video would be posted to YouTube. Jim Sterling, a video game reviewer and critic, would post a 3.5-minute video going over the gameplay trailer of Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. with the same criticisms many had shared prior, but expressing it in a much more emotional and vocal form.
I'm going to fuck your dog!
Something to know about this video is the fact that Scott had actually already taken down the Steam Greenlight page for Chipper & Sons at the time due to all of the criticism. So Jim Sterling making this video was basically just fucking hating for the hell of it, which on one hand, that was just kind of a super asshole move, but in retrospective, I think it was a necessary evil. Because of his current financial situation and all the hate and criticism he was receiving over Chipper & Sons, Scott actually went into a pretty depressive state for the time being, and even became pretty close to losing his faith in God. In the same interview conducted by Geeks Under Grace, he revealed that his life insurance policy had actually been cancelled due to the fact his insurance company had had actually found out somehow that he had expressed thoughts of suicide, which was just even more fuel to the fire. It was at that point I realized that not only did my life have no value, but now my death had no value. I went before God again, and it was the first time I truly went before him with nothing. I had nothing to offer him. I told him to use me somehow, although at that moment I had no idea what he could possibly use me for. Eventually, Scott did have his faith restored in God again, however, and thinking about the criticism he had received for Chipper & Sons Lumber Co., Scott decided to give game development one more shot and did something he had never done before. He was going to make a horror game. With the initial failure of the Desolate Hope, Scott wanted to make an experience that was relatively short compared to his other works, as he didn't want to spend as much time on something that could end up like everything before it. So while the Desolate Hope was in works for 2 years, Five Nights at Freddy's would be made in just a fourth of that time. Starting with the most important part of the game, Scott had to decide what animals the animatronics were going to be based on. This didn't exactly take very long with the initial 3. He knew he wanted to make a bear, chicken, and bunny. However, the fourth took a bit more thinking. He thought about a beaver, which was immediately scrapped as it reminded him too much of Chipper & Sons, then a wolf, and after some more thinking, he landed on a fox. It didn't take very long for Scott to actually model the animatronics, taking around 1 to 2 days for each one using 3ds Max. Freddy was done first, and then Bonnie was actually made from Freddy, which took another day. There isn't any information on how long Chica took. However, according to Scott, Foxy's model was actually done over a 24-hour road trip during the summer to visit his in-laws, which I always found pretty neat since Foxy's my favorite out of the 4. With the models done, now came the mechanics. Because of the failure of the Desolate Hope, Scott wanted to make a more concise experience that anyone could get instantly. In the Desolate Hope, it can be confusing where to go at times, so movement was out of the picture. The only form of movement in the game was looking left to right at your office. Everything was laid out in front of you. Power usage, buttons, and camera system. When you showed someone this game, they could get how the game works in less than a minute. So with all the mechanics set, now came the actual jump scares. Bonnie's jump scare was the first to be done. In fact, when it came to testing, Scott actually used a still image of Bonnie as a placeholder for every single animatronic jump scare. Because of this, however, this led to Scott actually having nightmares of his creation. He didn't find any of the animatronics actually scary, except for Bonnie. Speaking of testing, while Scott had some of his friends test the game for him to see what they thought, his main 2 and best testers would actually be his 2 own sons, Brayden and Ian. Multiple suggestions were made by these few testers. Some included saying to take out the phone guy as they didn't think much background knowledge was needed, and Scott's mother actually agreed with the sentiment and thought the game shouldn't have any mention of someone being killed. However, after months of testing, animating, modeling, programming, and changes, it was finally ready to be shown to the world. June 13th, 2014 would be the date when Scott Cawthon would submit FNAF to Steam Greenlight. On the same day, the first and only trailer of FNAF would be uploaded to his YouTube channel. Then a day later, Scott would start up a Kickstarter for the project, but then just 3 days after, he would cancel it for unknown reasons. There are actually some interesting things that can be seen with this Kickstarter. For one, Freddy was referred to as Freddy Bear instead, and there were multiple different rewards for pledging a certain amount. For $10, you could get a pack of 5 different wallpapers from the game. For $25, you could get the wallpaper pack and an early release copy of the game. And for $50, you could actually become a beta tester, receiving updated versions of the game weekly. If only I could go back in time and tell my 10-year-old self to spend $50 on this Kickstarter, then I could become its first and only supporter. Then, a little over a month later on July 23rd, a page would be created for the website IndieDB, and then a demo was available for download on July 24th, containing just the first 2 nights. Then finally, on August 8th, 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's would be fully available for anyone to play on Desera. What the fuck is Desera? Okay, to explain what Desera was, it was just another game distribution platform similar to something like itch.io, except for the fact that it ended up getting shut down for a long time, and then the platform was turned into a shitty browser game website. But whatever. Five Nights at Freddy's was officially released, baby! Now for each of these games, I'll talk about the gameplay first, and then get into everything else like the community, lore developments, and all of that stuff later. So, let's just get into it. When you start a new game, you're briefly given a newspaper clipping within the job you're applying for. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria is looking for a night guard to work from 12 to 6 a.m. All you gotta do is monitor the cameras and ensure the safety of the equipment and animatronics. Don't mind that little note at the end. Also, fun fact about this newspaper clipping, it was found out later on that the blurred out sides of the paper ended up being a bunch of filler words and so-called advice from the phone guy, saying, "This probably isn't the best choice of a summer job, since you most likely won't survive the week. I'd recommend being a cashier, sack boy, or work in a warehouse. They're all very respectable jobs, and you probably won't be killed by them. Well, you might, but it would be unlikely, blah blah." This isn't important at all to the game or its story, but I just thought I'd point that out, as this kind of humor will become semi-present in the games. But now, finally start our first night. You're immediately greeted with the sounds of a fan, electric humming, and an incoming phone call. With no other choice, the phone is picked up, and we get to hear one of the most iconic lines within the series.
Hello? Hello? I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. I actually work in a...
Right off the bat, we are already given a lot of info from the man on the phone, who would soon be dubbed the phone guy by the community. The phone guy immediately just drops a ton of reasons as to why the player should just quit right then and there, from the introductory greeting.
Upon discovering that damage or death have occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached and the carpets have been replaced, blah blah blah.
To the animatronics, what could happen if they get to you.
The characters do tend to wander a bit. They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. They'll probably try to forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit. So you can imagine how having your head forcefully pressed inside one of those could cause a bit of discomfort and death.
And of course, the bite of 87.
Then there was the bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, you know? Now, concerning your safety...
This phone call doesn't give any information on what to actually do, except right toward the end where it's touched on briefly, and after that, your shift finally starts. The core gameplay of FNAF is very simple. Check your cameras to see where the animatronics are, check the lights, and close the doors if they're right in front of you. You're gonna want to conserve as much power as possible though, because if you don't, well, let's just say that a certain animatronic will have a word with you. Speaking of animatronics, each one does work differently, so I'll briefly explain them for the two people who have somehow never seen any gameplay of FNAF, but somehow have still gotten this far into the video. Bonnie and Chica essentially both work the same. They'll both start at Cam 1A and then make their way to Cam 1B. However, Bonnie will deviate and go to either Cam 5 or Cam 2A. If he goes to Cam 2A, then he'll either go to Cam 3 or Cam 2B. Once at 2B, you have to wait until he either goes away or appears in your left door, to which you then have to shut it. Chica is dealt in the same way, except going to your right door from Cam 7 to 6, then 4A and 4B. That's all you need to worry about for night 1. Night 2 is essentially the same, except this is when Foxy is introduced to the loop, as Phone Guy advises on how to deal with him. For the longest time, it was believed that you had to be watching Pirate Cove to stall Foxy, but you can actually go on any cam and it'll stall him the same. Either way, Foxy will have 4 different stages that indicate when he's about to attack. When his cove is wide open and nowhere to be seen, if you switch to Cam 2A, you can see him bolt down the hallway, which will result in a jump scare if you don't close your door in time, which this will become important later on. Night 3 is when Freddy finally joins the crew, as the phone guy alludes to.
Anyway, I better not take up too much of your time. Things start getting real tonight.
While Freddy is the latest to join the gang, he is definitely the most creepy out of the 4 gameplay wise in my opinion. He goes along the same path as Chica, except you can barely notice when he is on the cameras, so you need to look closely otherwise you'll miss him. Unlike the other animatronics, most of the time when Freddy moves, you will always have a sound cue of him laughing. Once he reaches Cam 4B, you need to shut the door, otherwise he'll jump scare you right when he has a chance to. You really want to prevent him from getting there in the first place, however he will never go back to any of the later cameras except for 4A. All you have to do to stall him is open your monitor on the camera he's on, which prevents him from moving until the monitor is down. Now that I've explained all of the animatronics, on to the last 2 nights. Night 4 and 5 are the same as night 3, just amped up in difficulty. However, what makes them very distinct from each other are the phone calls. Night 4's infamous phone call is the last we ever hear from Phone Guy. He gives us one last request before being assumably killed.
Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm gonna try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad.
Surprisingly, Night 5 still has a phone call. However, we aren't greeted to the sound of a human voice, and instead, a very deep-pitched garble, which is assumed to be an animatronic, although it is still unknown to this day who it is. Now, I have no idea how people found this out, but by reversing the audio and touching it up, the garble turns out to actually be from an excerpt from a book called Autobiography of a Yogi, in paragraph 36 of chapter 8.
The agricultural development is needed by full use of your marvelous mechanism. Would it not be easily possible to employ some of them in quick laboratory experiments to indicate the influence of various fertilizer on plant growth? You are right. Countless use will be made by few generations. Seldom knows in perennial the joy of creating.
Nobody knows why this book was used, however, it has since become sort of common knowledge that the Night 5 audio comes from this book. And I think it's pretty funny that if you were to ask a Gen Zer if they know what this book is and how they're introduced to it, they'd most likely say FNAF. Either way, upon completing Night 5, we are finally rewarded with our paycheck of $120. But we aren't done. In the main menu of the game, we are rewarded a star for our completion of the base game. However, below the continue button is an option to continue on to the 6th night, which is essentially just a harder night than Night 5. There isn't a phone call for this one, it just throws you straight into it. When completing Night 6, you're rewarded with 50 fucking cents of overtime pay, what the fuck? Also on the menu, you get a 2nd star, and most intriguingly, a custom night. Ranging from 0 to 20, you can individually set the AI levels of each animatronic. I don't think when Scott Cawthon added this feature, did he realize that this would end up creating an entirely different sub-community of FNAF. But at the same time, he didn't really expect this game to take off, so this game really nailed everything it set to do. The sound design is amazing, and even comes to play with certain cues being memorizable on what they do. The mechanics are simple, the gameplay loop is fun, and most importantly, it is fucking terrifying. You never feel safe in this office, and the only time you do is with these huge metal OSHA violating doors down, which can only stay on for so long because of how much power they consume. The characters are iconic and so distinctive from one another, it would create an entirely new genre altogether, mascot horror. But enough of what I thought about this game. What did the public think of it at the time? Immediately, FNAF became an almost overnight success, and I don't think anyone can argue against the fact that YouTube videos about the game were a massive contribution, especially Let's Plays. Speaking of which, the very first Let's Play of this game would actually be uploaded to YouTube only 13 days after the trailer would, by someone named Ben the Scoopist. Now you're probably confused as to how this video came out so much earlier than the actual release date of the game, and without playing a copy of the demo either. That's because Scott himself actually gave Ben an early copy to the game. While Ben didn't donate to the failed Kickstarter for the game obviously, he did actually record and play the Desolate Hope before FNAF was even announced. And being probably the first to actually upload a full playthrough of the game, Scott took notice of this and appreciated this gesture. So the two got to talking and Ben received an early copy of the game. And well, the rest is history. While Ben never really got the recognition he deserved, hell, people only found this out after the interview he did for a section of a Sagan Hawks video. After the game was officially released, it was only a matter of days before the game would skyrocket into the public sphere, and the fuse to that rocket would be lit on August 10th, 2014. A British YouTuber by the name of Yumi would upload his playthrough of the FNAF demo, just a mere 2 days after the game's official release. While being one of the earliest playthroughs of the game after its official release, if not potentially the earliest, it wasn't really anything special. I mean hell, he only barely got past night 1 for the entire video, and it sits at just barely 1 million views. But the thing that makes this video really special is who would be inspired to record their own gameplay after Yami Mash's. 2 days after this video was uploaded, the fuse would set the rocket off.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's, an indie horror game that you guys suggested en masse, and I saw that Yami Mash played it and he said it was really, really good. So I'm very eager to see what is up, and that is a terrifying...
Markiplier's first ever video on Five Nights at Freddy's would be uploaded to YouTube on August 12th of the same year, being inspired by Yami Mash to play the game. I don't think many people understand how crazy of a chain reaction this is. The fact that one of Mark's old friends playing the game inspired him to play the game and resulted in the most popular Let's Play of the FNAF series by far, and even one of the most popular Let's Play videos in general, sitting at a whopping 120 million views, is just absolutely fucking insane. This would also lead to the exposure of FNAF to millions of people, as well as Markiplier himself. Hell, in fact, this was the case for me. My first ever Markiplier and FNAF video was this playthrough, and I remember so distinctly seeing this video when it first came out. My family and I had just moved to a new house, and in the same week while we were getting things set up, they had just finished hooking up our smart TV we had to the internet. Since our parents didn't want me and my brothers getting in the way of their moving, they just let us onto YouTube on the TV. Upon opening the app, since we weren't logged into any account or anything, it just showed us what was trending, and lo and behold, there was Markiplier's FNAF video. Markiplier's first jump scare by Foxy had also just happened to be me and my brother's first jump scare as well, and I remember just being so freaked out at that, but also entertained, and it was probably one of my earliest memories I have of being interested in horror. Anyways, enough of that lame personal bullshit, it's time to go viral, baby. This was the explosion for the rocket, and now hundreds if not tens of thousands of YouTubers were making content on the game, exposing FNAF to millions of people, with even some careers being started because of it, probably most notably Dawko, uploading his first FNAF video on August 15th. But there were many notable names who would also upload their respective gameplay videos, such as Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie, and CoryXKenshin, who would actually upload his video on the same day as Markiplier, and even got a comment from Scott. And it wasn't just Let's Players either. Musicians, digital artists, animators, theorists. The FNAF community was growing at such a rapid pace with no sign of slowing down. So while I won't be able to cover every single tiny detail for each of these sub-communities, I'll try and get the most popular ones. When it comes to music, I think everybody knows who was the first and best to do it. The Living Tombstone would post their original song just a mere 29 days after the game was released, simply titled Five Nights at Freddy's One Song, and it instantly became an iconic hit. The lyrics, vocals, instrumentals, everything about this song was just amazing at the time, and still is today. With a view count of over 364 million, which is literally more people living in the US by the way, this song has forever cemented itself within the community, and we'll see it again eventually, both the song itself and the artist behind it. Speaking of artists, let's talk about fan art. Now, while it is a popular belief that the Meatly, yes, the guy who made Bendy and the Ink Machine, was the first person to post FNAF fan art on the internet, that would actually be false, as 2 days earlier on August 11th on Twitter, a person with the handle @_CG_1999 would post this. A painting of Freddy Fazbear. Pretty good one at that. I think it's an awesome piece for it to be the first fan art of the game, at least that we know of. Maybe there's a cave drawing out there with Foxy on it or something. Animators would also go crazy with this game. Crazy Boars' Troll Palace video, 5 AM at Freddy's, Markiplier's FNAF Animated, IS Cupquake's FNAF Animated, which happened to be done by Jaden Animations, and of course, the countless amount of SFM animations based on already existing music, funny memes, headcanons, and theories. Wait, what was that last part? You probably noticed I left out one major part when talking about the game, and it's Easter eggs and lore. Wait, that's two things. Throughout the game, we were able to get multiple different unique Easter eggs, such as different newspaper clippings detailing an incident involving missing children, creepy photos of children crying, and of course, Golden Freddy. While I can't pin down who coined this term because Scott himself didn't call him this at first, it was definitely popularized by Markiplier with the second video on the game, where he encounters Golden Freddy and puts it in the title. But this single character would lead to even more speculation about the story of the game, and thus, the theory community community was born. Now, there were tons of theories being speculated upon because of the nature of the game. Scott didn't go with the traditional approach when it came to storytelling, instead going with a much different route by giving tiny breadcrumbs which would lead to a bigger picture. What was the bite of 87? What was the missing children's incident and who was behind it? Was it the phone guy? Golden Freddy? Was it the night guard you play as? Who did the bite of 87? There are so many questions yet no answers so far, but I wanted to cover some of these old theories. First, we have the theories of who did the bite of 87, and I remember at the time it was widely agreed that it was either Freddy or Foxy, although I personally believed it to be Foxy more than Freddy. The only thing that had it going for Freddy being the potential biter was the fact that there could be these sort of handprint shapes seen on Freddy's face on the icon of the game. Foxy, on the other hand, had so much more evidence. The fact that he's supposed to be out of order, which presumably was put there after the events of the bite, his torn up look, and most importantly, his teeth that appeared to be much sharper than the other three. Speaking of Foxy, there was a theory that Foxy was actually a good guy based on the fact that his jump scare was much more different than the others, just peeking from the door frame instead of, mauling your face off. But we'll later see this theory prove itself wrong. Most of the theories, such as whether Golden Freddy was a killer or not, were purely just speculation. However, we should talk about what was probably the most insane theory at the time, and if I'm being honest, still is. I'm sure everyone knows who MadPat or Game Theory is by now, being one of the forerunners of the FNAF theory scene, if not the forerunner. Uploading his first FNAF video on October 23rd, 2014, he made the absolutely batshit insane theory of connecting the game to a real-life event that took place in 1993 Aurora, California, where a man would shoot 4 people dead and critically wound another in a Chuck E. Cheese. Now, at the time, this was probably a pretty plausible theory since there was so much mystery around the game, but hindsight in 2024, what the fuck? Anyways, I just want to cover that since this is one of the only times I'm going to talk about theories from MadPat, since he literally has like over 100 videos and live streams on FNAF. I am not watching all of that. You know how I said the addition of a custom night would create an entirely new sub-community for the game? Well, upon seeing the maximum limit for each of the animatronic AI levels, people started to wonder if it was possible to set all 4 characters to 20 and complete the night. Thus, 420 mode was born, also known as the max mode challenge. Scott Cawthon had never tested whether this was even possible or not before releasing the game, but just 12 days after releasing the game, a player by the name of Big Bug would upload the world's first max mode completion to YouTube, taking around 23 hours and 170 tries according to him. This was a monumental achievement at the time, and even caught the attention of Scott himself, who would end up adding a 3rd star to the title screen for anyone who had also completed it afterward. However, most people, including myself, were mostly introduced to this type of challenge by Markiplier, would upload his completion of 420 just a day later, being the 2nd person to ever complete 420, while also simultaneously swiping Big Bug out of the limelight. He still did credit Big Bug, however, for being the first victor, so at least there's that. The final thing I'll touch on for this game would be the hoaxes. There were plenty of these in the early days of the community, some of which were honestly pretty convincing, but the 2 most notable around this era would be Sparky the Dog and the 1987 secret ending. Sparky the Dog was created a little bit after the game's release by 2 people named Coda Bear and Nugan. It was rumored that Sparky was a secret 6th animatronic, and how you could see Sparky on Cam 5, the backstage camera. They would post supposed proof of this being real, and it would spread like wildfire. After a month or so, however, Nugan would reveal the entire thing to be a hoax on their Tumblr page, due to the fact that it got so out of hand, with people digging through FNAF's game files, trying desperately to find Sparky, and people having to constantly remove Sparky from their wikis as an official animatronic. The reason this was able to be spread for so long, even after it was announced to be faked, was probably because the Photoshop job was honestly really well done, even for today's standards, and especially back then. The thing that made this really convincing was probably how the static of the camera was layered on top of Sparky flawlessly, and the design itself being relatively consistent to the other animatronics. The 1987 secret ending, on the other hand, while being able to be proven fake really easily, was actually made canon in a sort of weird way. The original rumor was that if you inserted 1987 into the custom night of the game, you would get a secret ending. Obviously, nothing actually happened when players did this until Scott caught wind of it. He would later update the game so if you input 1987 now, you could get a Golden Freddy jump scare and a game crash, which it still does to this day. This, while being a really small change, definitely is sort of wholesome in a weird way. Like, Scott noticed this rumor being spread around the community, and instead of ignoring it or shutting it down, he decided to do a little joke that not only debunked the rumor, but also turned turn it into a fun Easter egg that was also used to troll people. I could really go on and on and on about the iconic pieces of media that are being released left, right, and center around this time, such as Garrett Williamson's How to Make Five Nights at Freddy's Not Scary. However, that in itself could probably bring this video to being 10 hours long, even if I just touched on everything briefly. So I'll move on to the day of September 24th, 2014. On Scott Cawthon's previously mentioned website, scottgames.com, he would occasionally change to give updates on his projects. However, on that September day, he did something he had never done on his website before. He posted a teaser for his next project. Now, it was pretty obvious as to what this could mean. Scott was working on a sequel to FNAF. If it wasn't evident by the fact there's a big ass 2 in the photo next to a never seen before Freddy model, the file itself was literally called FNAF2.jpg. It seems Scott was going for a 2015 release date. However, it wasn't known what month just yet. Just 4 days later, on September 28th, the teaser would be replaced by a different one, something borrowed and something new. This was the first look we had at a completely new character, and this implied the fact that, well, the cast of the first game were probably all destroyed now, or as the community would later call them, withered. Going into October on the 8th, another teaser would replace the previous one, this time showcasing Foxy and a different variant, but at the time was nicknamed Miss Foxy. How original. Obviously, we know now that they're called Mangle, but it's interesting to see at this point in time, Mangle here as a hook, but in the actual release of the game, it's absent from their design. Another 8 days later, we would get the most revealing teaser out of all of them, which would be a first look at the mask mechanic, but not just that, it would also be a first look at the flashlight mechanic and how Foxy worked. Then just 5 days later, Scott would upload a video to his YouTube channel. The amount of hype this trailer generated in such a short amount of time was insane, and it made sense. So many new things were being revealed, such as the office, animatronics, map layout, and even a jump scare. I remember people were fucking dissecting this shit like a frog in a middle school science class, saying how if you reverse the audio of the London Bridge song, it would say some cryptic shit or something like that, but they just turned out to be reaches. Then sometime around November, we would get the final teaser, a simple cam button with a danger symbol around it. This would start a trend where people would now sometimes have to manipulate the image to get even more information, because if you brightened the teaser in Photoshop, it would reveal the puppet, or the marionette it was more popularly called at the time. I'll be honest, the marionette was and still is a way cooler name than the puppet. The community still wouldn't know what that danger symbol meant though, and it seemed like we wouldn't find out till January at the earliest. However, Scott had different plans, because on November 5th, 2014, we would be greeted with a surprise. Now you're probably wondering what the fuck this is and why I'm bringing this up in a bunch of teasers, and well, what you're looking at is actually the first ever FNAF fan game posted to GameJolt. Created by Zamins, this is literally just a game where you shoot a bunch of retextured human models that sort of resemble Freddy and Freddy only. The fact that this is the first FNAF fan game to ever be posted on GameJolt, and it's older than FNAF 2 is fucking hilarious to me. Like, just barely 2 by like 6 days. Wait, FNAF 2 was released 6 days later? Much to everybody's surprise, FNAF 2 would actually be released on November 11th, 2014, despite the release date being teased to be around 2015. But hey, nobody was complaining. A day after the game's release, Scott would update his website to display a single word, offline. Well, it seems like Scott doesn't have anything else to show, so he might as well dive straight into the gameplay. Obviously, FNAF 2's gameplay is much more different than FNAF 1, with essentially everything being changed except the fact that, well, you don't want the animatronics killing you. Duh. Because of the fact that there are literally twice as many animatronics in FNAF 2 compared to FNAF 1, I'm going to cover how you deal with them much more briefly and focus more on the phone calls. Starting up a new game, it starts very similarly to FNAF 1, a newspaper clipping detailing the grand reopening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. The pay is lower though, however, being $100.50 instead of the previous $120. This may just seem like simple wage theft from a shitty company, however, this will become important later on when it comes to the story of the game. The first night serves as yet another introductory night with very little threats, 2 being Toy Chica and Toy Bonnie. They'll come from the vents and can be seen using the light above the duct, and to make Chica go away, just put on your mask and wait for a sound cue. Bonnie is dealt with in the same way, except an animation of him going across your screen will play instead. As for this night's phone call, we get a decent amount of lore and much more information on how we're actually supposed to play the game compared to FNAF 1's Night 1 phone call. Animatronics are allowed to walk around during the day and are even connected to a criminal database to prevent unwanted guests from being in the area. However, since they were never given a night mode, they still continue to wander around and still try to find people, which in this case is the night guard you play as. There's two solutions to this, the previously mentioned mask and a music box. The mask is a hollowed out Freddy head which apparently tricks the facial scanners of the animatronics into thinking you're one of them. However, the music box is a totally different story. You know how I said there were only 2 threats? Well, it's actually more like 3, with the aforementioned marionette or puppet from the teasers. To deal with her is relatively simple. On the prize corner camera is a button you can remotely use to wind up a music box. Keep it from depleting entirely, otherwise you'll get jump scared. The final piece of information we get for this night is how our flashlight works. It only really is used for the hallway, as the rest of the building has dedicated light buttons, while the flashlight can run out of power. The building lights cannot sense the pizzeria is actually powered by something that's more powerful than 20-year-old AAA batteries found in a TV remote with that crusty shit found all over it. You know what I'm talking about. Night 2's phone call is much shorter, but still gives a decent amount of information. We get to find out that the mask trick will work on all of the withered animatronics as well, except for one, Foxy. We won't have to worry about him at all though, since the phone guy gives us a way to deal with him. He'll show up in the hall occasionally, and all we have to do is use our flashlight to, well, flash a light at him. There are 3 other animatronics that are also introduced into this night besides Foxy as well, for a total of 7 animatronics including the puppet, Balloon Boy, Toy Freddy, and Mangle. Balloon Boy and Mangle work relatively similarly, acting like counterparts to Toshika and Bonnie. Balloon Boy comes from the left vent, and if you see him, put on the mask and wait for a sound cue to make sure he goes away. If you don't, he won't jump scare you, but instead get into your office and steal your flashlight batteries, so you won't be able to look down the hall, which will most likely result in a death from Foxy. Mangle will come from the middle hall or the right vent. If they come down the middle hall, you just need to put on your mask and wait for them to go away. Same goes for the right vent. However, a loud static sound will play, so it'll be much more obvious when they're in the vent and go away. If allowed into the office, a jump scare isn't instant, but they'll hang around the ceiling for a random amount of time before killing you. Toy Freddy will just come down the hall and eventually show up in your face. Upon doing so, just put on your mask as fast as possible, and then he'll go away. Night 3 doesn't have a whole lot of information that is helpful to the player. Just a bit of conversation about Mangle, who is named that since, well, the kids literally couldn't stop just taking them apart, so the employees just got lazy and decided Mangle to be a quote, take apart and put back together attraction. If animatronics can feel pain, then man, being Mangle must fucking suck. There were also some talk about rumors, but that's essentially it for the phone call. Withered Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy are introduced this night, and essentially work the same as Toy Freddy. They'll both make their way into your office, and once in your office, you just need to put on the mask fast enough so you don't get jump scared. Only difference between the 3 is that they'll come from different paths, but that's about it. One thing to note about the gameplay, however, is that from this night forward, you don't really use your cameras for anything else other than the music box. Because of the rate that the music box counts down is significantly faster than the first night, leaving little to no time at all to check the other cams. It's also to be noted that if one of the office animatronics are stalled for too long, they'll just automatically flip your monitor down and force you to put on the mask, which takes up winding time and lets it go down. So from here on out, the strategy is more so to be focused on winding up the music box as much as possible, and then dealing with threats afterward, with Foxy, Toy Bonnie, and Balloon Boy being the most important. Night 5 and 4 are essentially harder versions of Night 3. There aren't any new animatronics introduced, so I'll just talk about the phone calls. Night 4's phone call is quite jarring to say the least, letting the player know that some investigation is now going on at the pizzeria, and then just spitting some corporate garbage.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days, I don't know. I want to emphasize though that it's really just a precaution. Fazbear Entertainment denies any wrongdoing.
One thing that adds to the lore, however, is the fact that the facial recognition system on all the animatronics have been acting weird lately, according to the phone guy. All the animatronics interact with the kids just fine, but don't do anything except stare when it comes to adults. On to Night 5, this phone call is one of the most important phone calls in the entire series as a whole when it comes to piecing the story of the game together. That's because it's the first time a different location is mentioned.
We're going to try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that. It's closed for years though. I doubt we'll be able to track any anybody down.
This is the only time Fredbear's Family Diner is brought up in the entire game, and I'll come back to why this was such a pivotal moment for this game's story in the theory section of this game. However, we finally get our paycheck of $100.50. Now of course, like the last game, FNAF 2 does not end off at night 5. In the title screen, you have an option to play a 6th night, which does actually have some pretty notable changes compared to night 5. Starting night 6, we get a phone call from a very distressed sounding phone guy, who has this to say.
Hello, what on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
He tells us to just finish his shift since it would be dangerous to leave in the middle of the night, and now tomorrow there's a single event scheduled, a birthday party. As for the gameplay of this night, it's essentially just a harder version of night 5, except one major key difference, the addition of Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy is an actual animatronic in this game instead of an Easter egg like FNAF 1. He'll appear in either 2 spots, that being your office or the hallway. When he appears in either spot, all you have to do is very quickly put on your mask, otherwise, well, at this point you should know what happens. Defeating the knight will grant us a check worth $20.10 overtime, and a newspaper clipping which reads the following. Freddy Fazbear's is closing. After being open only a few short weeks, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is closing its doors. The new animatronics will be scrapped due to possible malfunctions. However, the original characters are being kept in hopes of a possible reorganization of the company. It's a minor setback. We are confident that we will reopen someday, even if it is with a much smaller budget. CEO Fazbear Entertainment. Upon completing night 6, we are rewarded with the ability to gain access to the custom night, being able to set all 10 animatronics from 0 to 20. And on that note, I think it's time to talk about the reception this game got after its release. While the first game really started getting the ball rolling for Scott, FNAF 2 would boost the game's popularity even more so than the first one did, and that was definitely thanks to the much clearer storytelling that allowed for the community and newcomers alike to become invested. You might have noticed I skipped out on a huge portion of the game, and it's probably the biggest reason as to why people started paying attention more to the story, and that's the Easter eggs. There were so many unique Easter eggs in the game that just sprinkled tidbits of lore around, and some that were just added for the hell of it, most notably the secret animatronics and the death minigames. I'll get into the secret animatronics first, since they're much more brief compared to the death minigames, and there aren't a whole lot anyways. First we had JJ, which was simply just a retextured female version of Balloon Boy. She would very rarely appear under your desk inside your office, then disappear after your monitor was flicked up. Second, there was Endo, who would very rarely show up in prize corner or your left vent, and is simply just an endoskeleton.
Oh, what the fuck?
It won't actually do anything to your gameplay whatsoever, except when they appear in the left vent, it'll actually prevent another animatronic from going in its spot. So Endo is actually kind of a good guy, except, you know, the dude barely shows up, so I wouldn't really rely on him. The last two were definitely the most mysterious and coolest, that being Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie. Shadow Freddy would have a chance to appear in parts and service once every single withered animatronic left. He had no effect on gameplay, however it was obviously really creepy to just see a full purple blackish version of Freddy with white eyes. Shadow Bonnie, also known as, and I quote, RWQFSASXC, I have no idea why the fuck they're called that, is an extremely rare animatronic that has a 1 in 1 million chance of showing up in your office. All they are is a blacked out version of Toy Bonnie. However, this is the only secret animatronic that will actually have an effect on gameplay. If you stare at Shadow Bonnie for around 4 seconds, your game will just close unless you flash your light at him, to which he'll then fade away. Also, fun fact, you know how I said they were supposed to be a 1 in 1 million chance of spawning? Yeah, I lied. You see, Shadow Bonnie was supposed to be a 1 in 1 million chance. However, the game only has a 16-bit integer limit, meaning the maximum number it can store was only 65,536. So if you divide that number by 1 million, the chance of Shadow Bonnie appearing is actually 1 in 16,384, or around 0.065%. They're obviously still rare as fuck to encounter, but not 1 in 1 million rare. This isn't really important to the lore or story or anything like that, obviously. I just thought that was really interesting. Anyways, I'll stop yapping about bits and shit or whatever. Let's talk about the death minigames. While originally only being able to show up after you die to the puppet, every time you die to any animatronic in the game, there's a chance your screen will start to glitch and play static. You'll be greeted to one of 4 minigames. Save them, take cake to the children, give gifts, give life, or Foxy go go go. Starting with take cake to the children, we play as Freddy and have to go around feeding kids by walking up to them. However, in the outside area of the restaurant, a crying child can be seen. After a little bit, a car drives up to the kid, and then what seems to be a man comes out, a purple man. The child starts to cry even more and more and more until he turns gray. And then the man gets back into his car and drives away. Once this is over, you're jump scared by the puppet and go back to the title screen. Speaking of the puppet, Give Gifts, Give Life has you playing as said animatronic in a room with what seems to be 4 dead bodies. You go to each body and give them a gift, to which then now you need to go back to each body and give life, putting a mask of one of the 4 original animatronics onto the children. Once you're done with the final mask, however, you'll get jump scared by Golden Freddy. What's really interesting about this one is the fact that just for a single frame, you can actually see a 5th child in the center of the room without a mask before being jump scared. Also, while doing this, the phrase help them is slowly being spelled out. Foxy Go 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 has you playing as, well, Foxy. All you have to do is wait till it's time to go, and then once you've gone to the next room, 5 kids are cheering for you. This is repeated a 2nd time, however on the 3rd time, a purple man can be seen on the left side of the stage, smiling. When you go this time, all the kids are dead, and then you're jump scared by Withered Foxy. Save Them is the final minigame, and I saved this one for last because it happens to be the rarest, with only a 1 in 10 chance of getting this minigame after you die. This one is much more complicated than the others as well, as there are multiple ways for this game to end, so I'll go into each way. Playing as Freddy once again, you navigate through a large map that seems to resemble the pizzeria, while the phrase save them is spelt out, similar to the give gifts minigame. Every 30 seconds there's a 1 in 3 chance that the game will just end out of nowhere, along with a 1 in 4,000 chance that Golden Freddy can appear in one of the rooms, but most interestingly is a rare occurrence that can happen if you move to a room to the right. With a 1 in 100 chance, the same purple man from the 2 minigames will rush toward you, and upon coming in contact, the minigame will end with blue static and the words "you can't" at the bottom left. The other 2 ways this minigame can end is through touching one of the 5 dead bodies scattered around the map or following the puppet into a specific room. It is interesting to note that with all these other endings, however, you will always get red static instead of blue. Geez, that was a lot of information about the Easter eggs, and some of you may have forgotten why I'm bringing this up in the first place, in a section where I'm supposed to talk about the community and such when this could have been talked about in the game section, and well, that's because of the theories. Theories were now popping up left, right, and center because of all this new lore, information, and secrets. Some of these theories would turn out to actually be true, and the others were just missing the mark entirely. Who was the killer? Did Mangle do the bite of 87? Were there actually 2 killers? Is Toy Chica really that bad of a bitch? I remember the most popular theory at the time was the fact that the phone guy was actually the purple man, or as the community would name him, the purple guy. This would be mainly pushed by MatPat once again. However, this time, it was actually, fucking believable and not total nonsense. The main piece of evidence that was able to drive this home at the time was the fact that in the Save the minigame, it appears to be that he's holding a phone. Which, I mean, yeah, it does, but with that same logic, you could say that his badge was actually a fucking piece of toast. This was very widely accepted though, and every other theory related to the purple guy was just kind of pushed off, at least for now. The only other theory I can recall off the top of my head that actually did end up being true in the future was the fact that FNAF 2 was actually a prequel in the story timeline. People started to suspect this at the end of the game when you received your paycheck. The date is November 12th, 1987. In the first game, the bite of 87 was talked about in past tense, so that opened up a whole can of worms that ended up actually being true. This was also pushed by the fact that in the Night 5 phone call, the previous location was a restaurant that we had never heard before at the time, Fredbear's Family Diner, which then led to a bunch of discourse on what the fuck that even was. I mean, I really could go on and on about these theories and questions. What happened to Toy Chica's beak? What's up with those cutscenes between nights? Was Mangle's static actually them calling the cops? Shit, I fucking hope not, man. Fuck 12. That's where I'll end the theory section there. So it's time to finally talk about the rest of the community. Obviously, FNAF 2 was yet another massive game for Let's Players to make videos on. Of course, we had Markiplier, Corey Kenshin, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye. However, there were a ton of YouTubers that are starting to make a name for themselves with the release of the game. Fusion Z Gamer, Dako, Smike.
Toy Freddy, well, he's kind of,
fat.
are the most notable, especially Daku, who would dabble in both gameplay and theory crafting. The community would also start to begin to gain fandom status, or how I would put it, fandomize? Yeah, let's just go with that. It would start to fandomize. Now you're probably asking, dude, what the fuck does that even mean? I mean, it was starting to shape more like other fandoms of other popular media, such as Harry Potter, Star Wars, Pokemon, and various animes. It's kind of hard to explain, but to try and beam what I'm thinking into your mind, basically we're getting more ship art, fanfics, and all of that good stuff. Like, don't get me wrong here, there are already starting to be a lot of that with FNAF 1, but with FNAF 2 having even more characters amplified the fuck out of this. On the topic of art, fan songs of the game were also starting to become more and more common. The Living Tombstone wasn't the only one in the scene now. However, they still did dominate it, especially with the release of their FNAF 2 song December 4th. What would later be known as It's Been So Long had a fucking iron grip on the community at the time, and still does to this day, although in different ways. You see, back then when this video was uploaded, people somehow came to the conclusion that TLT and Scott Cawthon were working together and that the music video was canon. Now I have no idea what the fuck the community was on in 2014, but looking back at it now, it was pretty funny. Speaking of the community being sort of delusional, I really gotta talk about the fucking hoaxes that were being made up around this time. These were mostly just fake characters that people tried to convince others were in the game, like a purple guy animatronic that is very clearly just a shitty Golden Freddy edit, a different colored puppet, and Shadow Balloon Boy. If I'm being honest, these all fucking sucked. Like, none of them had any redeeming qualities that would make them a cool hoax like Sparky. Purple Guy was already a secret character, the puppet recolor was just lazy as fuck, and out of all the animatronics you can make a shadow variant of, you chose fucking Balloon Boy? Man, these hoaxes are making me mad because of how fucking dog shit they were, dude. I need something to make me relax. Yeah, that's right, the max mode challenge was back. Now, take a guess. How long do you think it took someone to beat 1020? A week? 2 weeks? A month? Well, how about 2 fucking days after release? Oh look, It's FNAF would become the world's first 1020 victor on November 13th, 2014, taking 103 attempts before finally completing the challenge. It's honestly baffling to me how fast he was able to come up with a strategy and use that strategy to beat 1020. Although there was definitely quite a bit of luck involved, since 1020 is regarded as a max mode involving the most RNG. Either way though, Oluk would receive a personal congratulations from not just Scott, but also Jacksepticeye of all people, which I know must have just felt amazing. Markiplier would also complete the mode, having the most views out of any other YouTuber of course, but it should be noted by the time he uploaded his completion on December 14th, there were countless amount of victors before him, including one which was done on the iOS port of the game, which like geez, way to speedrun Carpal Tunnel, man. I would also like to mention that very recently, however, it was found out by another YouTuber, the Bones5, that Markiplier did likely actually cheat his 1020 run, to which when I first heard this, I thought it was complete bullshit. But after watching the actual segment of him explaining how, I gotta say the evidence is pretty damning, but it's not like it's the biggest deal in the world, and it would be pretty funny if he just started doing 1020 again right now, just saying. Anyways, that's kinda it for FNAF 2. I mean, I could talk about some animations that released, but to be honest, the only really notable one is Crazy Boris's. However, there are some pretty important things that happened that aren't tied directly to FNAF 2. Before the actual release of FNAF 2, I mentioned how we did get the first ever fan game to be posted on GameJolt. However, when you think of a FNAF fan game nowadays, I don't think shooting Freddy Fazbear in the face is really what you think of. You think of something more similar to the original series gameplay, and on November 2nd, 2014, we would get our first sign of a traditional FNAF fan game. Posted by AnArt1996 on DeviantArt, this was the first mention of Five Nights at Treasure Island, a FNAF fan game that took aspects from the creepypasta Abandoned by Disney, written by Slimebeast. There wouldn't be any more posts from AnArt for the rest of the month about the project until November 30th, to which they would post a render of one of the rooms. Then just a single day later, on December 1st, they would post on DeviantArt once again, announcing the demo for the game. They'll put a link to the game in the description of the post, however sadly it doesn't work anymore. One interesting thing to note, however, is actually what is already said at the bottom. I secretly hope that Markiplier will see this. XD. Not only would their wish come true, but they would get much more attention than they were expecting. Markiplier would make a playthrough of the game and upload it to his YouTube channel, which is most likely what gave the game most of its traction, along with Corey Kenshin and a handful of other YouTubers. While being pretty impressive at the time, Treasure Island wouldn't last long having the title of the only FNAF style fan game out there. As the year ended and another one started, fan games would start to become more abundant, with games like One Night at Flumpty's, Five Nights at Wario's, and Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Wait, what? Yeah, before the official Five Nights at Freddy's 3 came out, someone by the name of BFP Films or Tyler Ostrom wondered, hey, what if I just stole a shit ton of assets from FNAF 1 and 2, combined them together, and advertised it as a third game? That wouldn't be that bad, right? Uploading his magnificent creation to GameJolt on December 23rd, 2014, he simply titled the fan game Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This caused a ton of confusion on whether this game was official or not, which if I'm being honest, I have no idea how you would see this as official, but Tyler decided to try and dial it back a bit by adding fan-made in the title. However, this still didn't help a whole lot because it got so bad to the point Scott Cawthon had contacted Tyler asking him to politely change the title of the game completely, as he was getting countless complaints in his email about this game he didn't create. So Tyler simply renamed the game to The Return to Freddy's and uploaded it to GameJolt on January 5th, 2015. This is going to be the only time I mention this game series since it's the most major event the game went through. On topic of FNAF 3 hoaxes though, there were two fake creations going around that a lot of people fell for. One was a single photo which showcases FNAF 3 supposedly taking place at an amusement park and the other taking place in a mall. I'll touch on the Freddyland photo first because it's actually kind of a funny story behind it. The creator of this image, Danger Dude 991, made this when he was around 14 using Apple Keynote, which is literally used for making presentations by the way, and then he uploaded it to DeviantArt on November 21st. They didn't intend for this image to be a hoax, but it went viral soon after with a bunch of people acting like it was the next official FNAF teaser. Just around 2 years ago, they would come out and make a post on Reddit saying they were the original creator. Similar to the Freddyland image, Golden Lane Studio had posted their own mock-up FNAF 3 trailer on November 18th, 2014, which depicted a mall in a 3D environment. This one, if I'm being honest, fooled me as a kid. But looking back, I have no idea how anyone fell for either of these, considering there were so many things that made it obviously fake. I think it's also pretty funny to note that these two fake teasers were honestly pretty similar in how they were. Both took place at a public location, were intended to just be fan-made mock-ups, but then taken seriously with people saying it was real. Last but not least for the community developments that took place at this time, on January 4th, 2015, Splinks would release their iconic SFM models of the original 5 animatronics to the world, which would be used in countless fan animations, mods, and renders. Like seriously, these models were the models you wanted to use if you were to create anything FNAF related in SFM. Like I said before, after the release of FNAF 2, Scott Cawthon had updated his website to simply display offline. However, a little under a month later, this site would be updated on December 6, 2014. Now I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't see how this image was different from the last one. However, using Photoshop to brighten the image, it was pretty obvious as to what Scott was hinting at. The message would be replaced soon after with a simple Merry Christmas, and it would stay that way until the next year, on January 4th, 2015. I am still here. The community at the time theorized that this was Fredbear because if you brightened the image and flipped it, it created a face that kinda resembled a bear. But once again, in hindsight, this was just people stretching again. 11 days later, we would get yet another teaser. This time a box filled with parts from the toy and withered animatronics, essentially confirming that this takes place both after FNAF 1 and 2. Upon also brightening up the image for the 10 billionth time, we would get a better look at the mystery animatronic. Then after another 11 days, we finally got the trailer for the third game. Compared to the last two trailers, this didn't reveal a lot of gameplay at all. However, we did get a much better look at the new animatronic, which the community had now nicknamed Golden Bonnie or Salvage. We still didn't get a release date for the game. However, just a single day later, ScottGames.com would be updated to one of the phrases from the trailer but in purple, before being put back to a box of animatronic parts. As January 2015 had come and gone, the community was ecstatic for this game. It was the most hyped title in the franchise so far, and hell, a lot of people even agree that it was the most hyped game in the series even to this day. Then suddenly on February 4th, Scott updated his website once again, showcasing the map layout for the first time. Upon brightening this image once again, the hidden layout of the map was shown, that we would come to find out what it was later. Another 11 days would go by without a single teaser. Wow, this guy really likes the number 11 for some reason. Until unexpectedly, Scott made a community post on Steam that someone had hacked him and leaked the game to GameJolt, so he decided to cancel the game. If you were to find this Game Jolt page and download the file, you were greeted to a title screen that looks ultimately legit. In fact, the music used in this was actually the same music used in the actual FNAF 3, but just slowed down a bit. Notice how I said actual FNAF 3, because upon starting a new game, the players were just greeted to there is no pause button, but Freddy's head pasted on top of the character. Besides updating his website and uploading trailers, Scott would also do other things to generate hype or reveal certain things, such as trolling the community or even making Steam posts that, while seem normal, actually contain hidden messages. For example, this mysterious animatronic that the community had nicknamed Golden Bonnie and Salvage actually had his real name revealed in a community post Scott made. While the post itself was about beta testing for the game, some letters were duplicated, and upon taking every single letter that was doubled, it spelled "My name is Springtrap." After this, the community would be in a drought with teasers until the last day of February. Guess who? With a photo of a different model of Balloon Boy and a 10 when brightening the image. It was believed that this was supposed to be a countdown, as the day after March 1st, another teaser would be updated to the website with different variants of Foxy and Chica with the message, "It's all in your mind." As confusing as this was at the time, the community wouldn't have to speculate for long, if at all, on what this meant, because if the number on the Guess Who trailer was actually a countdown, Scott just said fuck that and released the game on March 2nd. Now, when I said the game was released on March 2nd, that was sort of a lie. You see, over the past 2 installments, Scott was actually putting together a VIP list for certain people to gain early access to his game. This list has grown longer and longer as time went on, but when FNAF 3 came out, the only 2 people I could say for certain were on this list are Markiplier and Corey X Kenshin, both releasing a video on March 2nd, 2015 of the 2-night demo, while everyone else was able to get their copy of the full game the next day. Anyways, with that out of the way, I'll get into the meat and potatoes of the game itself. Starting a new game, we are greeted with a newspaper clipping like nothing else we've seen. Instead of working at a pizzeria, we are now working for a horror attraction that is actually based on the events of the pizzeria itself. And something to note is the fact that this time around, there is actually no job listing seen anywhere. But nonetheless, we start our first shift. While the last 2 games had some sort of threat that could still kill you even though you kinda had to be dumb on purpose to get killed, FNAF 3's first night is impossible to die on, due to the fact that there's actually no threat even inside the building. I'm gonna summarize the phone call really quickly by only covering the bits that are important, because the phone call itself is actually pretty damn long, and by the time it's over, the night itself is over. To get some context, we are working at this horror attraction as both a real and prop night guard, with the idea being that as people walk through the haunted house-esque building, our office is a point of interest and we are part of the attraction itself, being almost like a prop security guard, except the fact that we, are an actual security guard. The place is supposed to open within a week, as said by our phone guy, or well, phone dude as he's called, since he's kind of got this surfer voice. All we gotta do is make
sure everything works and nothing catches on fire.
Also, we are given a reason as to why this night has no threats at all, and it's because they're looking for more props from the pizzeria and haven't found anything, well, too exciting. In fact, the plan is, if they still haven't found anything that interesting, the phone dude says he might have us put on a quote furry suit and make us walk around the place. I kid you not, they might have been planning to commission a fursuit for us to wear. However, this might not happen since someone who works for the attraction actually got in contact with an architect for one of the Fazbear buildings and claims there's a room that actually got boarded up, which could contain some props for the attraction. That's basically it for night 1. Now, you probably noticed I didn't explain any of the game's mechanics there whatsoever. That's because I'm going to explain it next night when it actually comes into play. But first, the mini games. At the end of each night, we are able to play a mini game where we control an animatronic. For night 1, we control Freddy. Moving to any of the rooms, we see a purple version of Freddy, which looks similar to Shadow Freddy in a way, and in the bottom left corner, he tells us to follow him. Upon following him to the certain room, we are unable to enter. However, trying to go in a different room will result in Night 2 is where we finally get into danger territory. Picking up the call from the phone dude, he's pretty ecstatic to tell us he found one, a real one. We'll find out what that one is soon. This is the last time we ever hear from Phone Dude, not because he died, but because from here on out, our phone calls will consist of training tapes that were found as well, and he lets one play for the rest of the night. This training tape that plays is intended to be listened by a performer/entertainer for Freddy Fazbear's, and here we are first introduced to the idea of hybrid costume. With 2 available suits, they can work both as being an animatronic and being worn as a suit at the same time. However, this is super fucking dangerous due to the fact it can literally cause cause accidents / injury / death / irreparable and grotesque maiming. The way these costumes go from animatronic to suit, however, is through a very important and iconic part of the series, spring locks. All you have to do is use a crank to compress the spring locks to prevent them from getting in the way, and now it can be worn as the suit. That's basically it for this night's lore. Now I can finally talk about how the gameplay works. If you put on your thinking cap or just know about this extremely popular 9-year-old game, you know that Springtrap is introduced into this night, who is the only animatronic in this game that can kill you. Now to deal with him, you need to use your monitor system, which is at the very right of your office. Upon opening it, there is a lot to see here. To start, you will notice that there's a play audio button and map toggle button, which are both very important. Springtrap will start on camo 9 and can go through any of these cameras. You can press the play audio button to play an audio lure, which will bring him to the room you just played the audio in, if it's not super far away from him. However, you need to watch out for what room you put him in, because it could contain a vent. If a vent is in said room, you can crawl through it, and that's where the map toggle comes into play. You can toggle between maps using this button, and see cameras that are installed inside vents. If Springtrap is inside a vent, double click the vent camera he's in to seal it, so he comes back out. If he goes through completely, you're basically fucked since the vent goes directly into your office. Now this gameplay sounds pretty easy. However, there's phantoms. Phantom animatronics can appear in various places. However, if you see them and don't counter them, you'll get jump scared, but instead of dying, it'll fuck up one of your 3 systems. Moving to left of the office, you can flip up another monitor with 3 different systems on it: audio, camera, and ventilation. If the audio services are down, then you can't use the audio lure. If the camera system is down, then you can't use any of the cameras at all. However, you still could use the audio devices if they're online. If ventilation is down, then your screen will occasionally black out. Now for the rest of the nights, I'm only going to be talking about the phone calls and lore, because this is essentially it for the gameplay for the rest of the nights. I mean, except for the fact that it does get harder and some of the phantom animatronics are introduced later on, but that's essentially all it is. So that's why I decided to explain it just all there. Anyways, let's move on to this night's minigame. It's essentially the same as last time, but just with Bonnie. Follow Shadow Freddy, and then get dismantled. Night 3's phone call is a continuation from Night 2, explaining more about the spring locks. If any pressure or moisture is put on the spring locks, they'll come loose. And if this happens while you are wearing the suit, they instruct you to fucking leave from any populated areas before you bleed out. The audacity of these motherfuckers. According to the tape, there's a safe room in every single location that is not marked on any digital map layout, so it's hidden to customers, cameras, and animatronics. So you're supposed to go there and just die, I guess. I'm starting to think Fazbear Entertainment isn't exactly the most clean company in the world. Night 3's minigame is just the same, but with Chica, she dies. Oh no. Night 4's phone call, while not a direct continuation, is still related to the spring locks. So these spring locks obviously are really fucking sketchy, right? Considering the fact that these can kill you in an instant if you put pressure or breathe on them. Well, apparently at a sister location within the company, there were a bunch of spring lock failures, and now the suits are deemed temporarily unsafe. You don't fucking say. However, if you want to, you can still wear them since they're free of liability. Yeah, let me just put on my portable saw trap for fun. Night 4's minigame is just the same shit except... Wait. Foxy. Foxy, no, wait, don't go there! Foxy, no! Night 5's phone call gives more information about the safe room in what is assumably the pizzeria. The phone guy also mentioned something about a spring Bonnie animatronic that it was moved, and since it was one of the 2 suits with the spring locks, he mentioned it's not safe to wear at all. So you know, don't wear that. After this night has ended, however, we finally get to know who Springtrap really is. For this final minigame, we play as a crying child. Making our way to a room where all of the dismantled animatronics are, we can finally enter the area where they couldn't. There are 4 other kids and the purple guy. Trying to get closer to him just makes him back away. Using this mechanic, we make him run into an old suit. Unlike the last 2 games, there are 2 endings that are available to be achieved. However, I'll go over the second ending after covering the 6th night, Nightmare. Like the past 3 nights, Nightmare Mode's gameplay isn't exactly anything special besides the fact that it's just harder. However, what is really interesting is once again, the phone call, but also the ending. Going over the phone call first, it is actually the shortest of them all, but it's the final piece to the puzzle on who Springtrap really is and what happened to him. Due to budget cuts, every single safe room, including the one inside the pizzeria, had a false wall built to block off the room. Nobody checked what was inside, it was simply just blocked off, with everything inside being forgotten forever, or that's what it seemed like. After this night, we get a newspaper clipping revealing that the horror attraction burnt down, with it being unknown whether it was on purpose or accident. But on that note, I'll talk about what needs to be done to get the good ending. Looking back on these steps, I wonder how the fuck anyone even figured out any of this. Like, this ending is so complicated for no reason with multiple steps and fake outs. But I guess I'll stop bitching. Here's the speedrun on how to get the good ending. Start a new game, go to Camo 8 and click the Balloon Boy poster twice. Get every single balloon, but instead of going towards the exit, go to the top left wall and fall through. Go right and get this other balloon. Complete night 1, go to Camo 7 on night 2 and press the buttons on this arcade machine in this order. Get every single part from angle, go above the door, through the wall once again and face through the wall. Do this parkour, get the cake, go back to the Balloon Boy minigame and face through the wall. Do parkour again, give this kid cake, complete night 2, and on night 3 look for cupcakes on the cameras 02, 03, 04, and 06. Get this cupcake, go down here, ignore these little shit stains, jump over the room and give this kid a cake, complete night 3, go to this specific part of the office which for some reason is a fucking keypad and insert the numbers 395248. Do some really weird maze shit and go to this room and give this kid cake, complete night 4. On night 5, go all the way to the right and click this figure which is supposed to be Shadow Bonnie. Go to the left while spamming S and give this kid his cake. Go to Camo 3 on the same night and click the puppet face. Get the last and final cake. Complete night 5, spring lock this stupid purple fuck, and finally, we have the good ending. And on that note, let's talk about what this game did for the series. Now, despite the game being the most hyped entry in this series, even to this day, reviews were generally pretty mixed. There were a lot of things that FNAF 3 had going for it: the gameplay mechanics, minigames, secrets, storytelling, atmosphere. Most would agree that it was the best so far out of the 3 games in these aspects. However, there were a handful of things dragging the game down that a lot of fans really disliked. Some thought the gameplay was too boring or too easy, they didn't like the phantom animatronics or their designs as they were thought to be too lazy, but most importantly, the thing that is still the most controversial part about FNAF 3, Springtrap's jump scare. Now, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. 100% Springtrap's jump scare is fucking ass. I really don't know how Scott went from this actual masterpiece of Withered Fox's jump scare to this rabbit that basically kills you by mewing. This is easily the thing that drags down FNAF 3 the most. Well, alongside the fact that the environments do just look like a vegetarian shit was spread all over everything, but that can be mostly excused. So now we've talked about the worst part of the game. Let's get to what is easily the best part of the game, the storytelling. Right off the bat, FNAF 3's story is a lot easier to follow with everything from the phone calls, mini games, and the fact that the information given to us is actually in chronological order. Speaking of which, let's analyze the story and then get into the theories. Upon killing all the 5 kids and stuffing their bodies into animatronics, Purple Guy leads them to the safe room one by one, but since they're programmed to not be able to go inside, they're essentially baited and Purple Guy dismantles them all one by one. These spirits, now having no place to go, corner the Purple Guy in this said room, so he runs to put on an old Springlock suit in the hope of scaring them off. However, we know from the vintage tapes that this suit was specifically put there due to the fact that it was extremely dangerous to be worn, which proves itself to be correct as the Purple Guy is springlocked and killed. Soon after, Fazbear Entertainment boards up every single safe room of their location, including the one that contains the Springlock suit with Purple Guy in it, so he is left there to rot away for 30 years. Somehow during this time, he is brought back to life, and the room is finally opened because of the people behind the Fazbear horror attraction looking for decoration. They now take Springtrap with them to the horror attraction, and after 6 days where all this information is revealed to us, the building is burned down, with no indication whether Springtrap survived or not. Now, there aren't really a whole lot of theories to actually cover since, well, the story is just really easy to understand, but there still were some unsolved questions. Which ending was official, the good or bad? What is the difference between the two? What was the cause of the building burning down? And if it was someone that set it on fire, who? A lot of questions from the first 2 games were solved. However, there were some new ones that were created. I mean, hell, to this day, people still don't know whether the good ending or bad ending is canon, which adding on to that the difference between the two is that the bad ending doesn't free the souls, but the good one does. It didn't seem like we were getting an answer to these questions though, since after the game was released, Scott had updated his website to a single top hat in his spotlight, indicating he was finally done. That doesn't mean the community was done, however. I mean, obviously I'm not going to forget about them. You already know the Let's Play scene for this game was huge once again, along with the community now going full throttle into becoming a fandom, especially with people who were thirsting for Springtrap, which, I mean, can kind of see where they're coming from. So how were the other sides of the YouTube scene for this game? I mean, obviously they were fucking bumping. TLT released their FNAF 3 song, which to this day is still the most disconnected this song has been from its game, besides the whole dismantling animatronics thing. I genuinely think it's the best one they've released, period. But we are now finally starting to get some competition with other musicians popping their head into the space like DA Games and JT Music. Of course, accompanying those songs were fan animations of those songs and fan animations in general. We had your usual faces like Crazy Boars and Pymations. Wait, this is an animation based on FNAF 2, why isn't it the third? Yeah, he released this one after FNAF 3 came out. You know those animations just don't grow on trees. But we also had some new faces show up like Sugar in the animation scene, with their fan animations of various songs and memes, which just watching now again feels like I just went straight back to 2015, because the style of these are just so nostalgic. Anyways, let's talk hoaxes. How many of these did we have here? What the fuck? Yeah, the amount of hoaxes being spread during this time already took a huge dip compared to FNAF 2. I mean, hell, there isn't even anything really interesting here besides a few handful of things, which once again, some of them weren't even meant to be hoaxes in the first place. These models by Fazboggle of fan-made Withered designs, while all kinda meh, the one that sticks out the most is Withered Balloon Boy. I have no idea what made this one stick out the most to people, but they just kinda ran with it. There was also these fan-made animatronic designs from someone named Emil Mako, which did look pretty good to the point where people said they were official FNAF animatronics, although this was debunked pretty recently. This Emil person does have some pretty good modeling skill. I wonder if he'll do anything with it. There's also this fake email from the supposed real Scott Cawthon that was just literally inspect elemented. This shit is the oldest trick in the book. Next! Max modes? You like max modes? I like max modes. You better like max modes. While FNAF 3 never had a custom night, there was something this game had that others didn't have before, an extras menu. Upon entering the menu, you got a bunch of stuff like jump scares for every animatronic, the animatronics themselves, mini games, and the most intriguingly, cheats. There were 4 cheats in total, but only 3 of them actually made the game easier. The last one actually increased the AI levels of all the animatronics. That cheat was called aggressive. So pair this cheat with nightmare mode, now you've got aggressive nightmare mode. The first person to post their victory of this mode on YouTube is someone by the name of Raider Horn Bar. However, in the description of this video, they credit a different person named Senpai for uploading their completion first, but this video cannot be found, so this is the earliest still standing completion of aggressive nightmare mode. And of course, Markiplier had to keep his self-proclaimed crown for the title of the King of FNAF, so he beat the mode as well. And on that note, let's move on to the events after FNAF 3. Before I talk about these certain events, I think it's important to note that around this time, people were starting to lose interest in the series. I mean, there are already 3 games in less than a year. It was assumed to have ended. Some lost faith in Scott simply because of the fact that Springtrap's jump scare was ass, as stupid as that sounds. And with the rise of cringe culture, people started to see fandoms like FNAF as cringy. Therefore, it became quote-unquote cringy to like FNAF as well, which nowadays that perspective, in my opinion, is cringe itself. This didn't stop fanworks at all, however, with one of the most influential fan games actually being released this time. You know how I said I would only mention the Return to Freddy's ones? Well, I lied, because there's actually a really important animatronic in that game, Sugar. Using a render from the previously mentioned Emil Mako and his fan character Candy the Cat, Tyler just stole it, cropped out the head, and pasted it over Toy Bonnie's jump scare. Emil obviously didn't like this and didn't appreciate his work being used in fan games, but this got him thinking. If his work were to be used without permission in fan games that quite frankly were fucking dog shit, he might as well try his hand at making his own fan game. So after several months, on July 18th, 2015, he released Five Nights at Candy's to massive success, eventually creating 2 games after in the following years, but I won't get into that. Along with one of the most influential fan games being released this year, we also got the first pieces of real FNAF merchandise. Produced by the company Sanshi, they dropped quite the lineup for being the first merchandise of the series, including plushies that are very accurate to the original scene in the game, these collector pins, and even the same Celebrate poster from the first game. It's a good thing that these were the first pieces of merch too, because the Sanchi line is regarded as some of the best official merchandise you can buy. And I swear on my life, I know God, if there is one, I will get my hands on every single one of these plushies, especially you, Foxy. You are not safe for me. This year also marks the first mention of a movie adaptation for the game being in works, under the company of Warner Brothers Studios. But you'll see that this didn't come into fruition, and the fact that it wouldn't for several fucking years. Anyways, that top hat from Scott's website is gone. Wait, what? On April 23rd, 2015, the top hat that accompanied the website for over a month had just vanished. Well, I guess we're getting another game. 5 days later, we would all get our first look at the new animatronics and even the release date of the game. It was all but confirmed that we were finally getting the last game in the series, releasing on Halloween. The only look at the Freddy variant for this game, it was hyping itself up to be the scariest one yet. Upon also doing the good old brighten and contrast trick, the word nightmare could be seen across the image, which gave him the name of Nightmare Freddy. Going into May on the 8th, we would get another teaser, this time asking a question and showing off Nightmare Bonnie's model. The "wasn't me" question was assumed to be a callback to the Bite of 87, reigniting the discussion on which animatronic did it. 9 days later, we got a look at Nightmare Chica, still asking the same question. The entirety of May would go by without a single teaser. Well, that is until the second to last day of the month with a look at Nightmare Foxy. Now this teaser actually stands out the most to me because first of all, it's Foxy, and second of all, this design actually did not make the final cut of the game. Scott had ended up removing Nightmare Foxy's tongue, and it was speculated this was done because Scott wanted less, well, freaky fan art of the characters, but it ended up being revealed that he just didn't find the tongue scary enough and it was harder to animate. Also, yeah, by this time people were drawing porn of the FNAF characters, get over it. Entering June on the 12th, another top hat was shown, with an added bow tie and both the items sharing a purple color instead of black, brightening the image once again. The bottom of the image could be seen a property of tag that cut off at the company name. However, it was figured later on that it ended up being property of Fredbear's Family Diner. 2 weeks would go by before another teaser, this time revealing who the purple bow tie had belonged to, although at the time it was unknown who this mysterious black bear character was. However, this time Scott had done a different tactic of teasers, and it was now hiding it within the source code of the website. Upon using inspect element and looking through some of the tag names, there's a random string of letters which, when moving back every single letter by one, it was revealed to be the name of Fredbear. This was the first time Scott had done this, and it was definitely not the last. Speaking of, going into July, now on the 10th, we got another teaser of a character who was found to be named Plushtrap through the website's code once again. Then 3 days later, we got our final teaser before the game's release, the trailer of the game itself. This revealed to us some of the mechanics of the game, such as the doors making a return except in a much more traditional sense, along with the flashlight, as well as the location, a house. I remember not only being absolutely hyped, but also fucking terrified of this trailer. Like, those animatronics were not playing around, and that jump scare from Bonnie actually sent me like 15 feet flying backwards. Speaking of which, I think it's notable to say that one of the supposed main reasons that Scott Cawthon actually created FNAF 4 was because of how bad the reception for Springtrap's jump scare was in 3, so he decided to redeem himself by making a 4th game. I legitimately have no idea on whether this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case at all. Take that with a grain of salt though. Maybe he did just create FNAF 4 because of Springtrap's shit jump scare, I don't know. Anyways, all we have to do now is have patience and wait for 3 months till Halloween. It wouldn't be easy for fans having a drought of content for this long, but they would just have to deal with— Wait, I'm getting a call. Hello? Hello, hello? What the fuck you mean he released it in the same month? Once again, Scott Cawthon just decided fuck it and released the game way ahead of schedule. First, he gave demo copies out to select YouTubers once again on July 21st, then 2 days later, he released the full game. So once again, let's get right back into the gameplay. 5 days until the party. Before the start of each night, we do get a playable minigame. However, Night 1's is very short and self-explanatory, which also can be said about the mechanics of the game. FNAF 4's gameplay is not like anything we had ever seen in the franchise so far, and while that could be said for every single entry, this one really stands on business for being unique. There's no cameras, no phone calls, no visible map, and most importantly, actual movement. You see, there are 4 different places you can go or look within this room: the left and right doors, closet, and your bed. I'll explain everything except the closet. That'll come later. The bed has to be looked at every once once in a while. Miniature Freddies called Freddles will appear on your bed, and you need to shine your flashlight at them to make them go away. The more Freddles there are means the more you're in danger, with 3 being the max amount that can appear before you get jump scared. It's basically this game's version of the music box. Don't let it get to 3. Going to either the left or right door, you will be able to do 3 different things. Shine a light down the hallway, close your door, or go back to your room. The key mechanic about this game is sound. You need to be able to listen. If you hear breathing while at the door, close it until you hear footsteps going away. Then open the door again and flash down the hallway. If you don't hear breathing, then just flash down the hallway to prevent any animatronic from getting close. You do not want to close the door when there's no animatronic there, because if you flash the hallway after, one will appear right in your face. Chica and Bonnie are the animatronics that will come to either your right or left door, meaning there are a total of 3 animatronics active throughout the entire night, if you count Freddy. So once you get to 6 AM, it's time to actually head to bed. You know he is hiding again. This time we are finally able to walk out of our room. However, before I do that, it is noteworthy to look at the layout of the room. It is completely different to the one in game. You won't stop until you find him. Exploring around, we get a look around the house, and weirdly enough, that Fredbear plush is following us around. I wonder if he'll ever stop. And with that, the child falls to the floor and cries, ending the minigame. After night 1, we were actually able to play another separate minigame, this time actually being able to provide us with an advantage. Using sound cues, all we have to do is get Plush Trap on this X in front of us, but he won't move at all if our flashlight is on, and we have a limited amount of time to do so, which decreases every night. You only get 1 shot at this every night, and if you do actually succeed, you get to skip the first 2 hours. However, if you die that run, then you'll just start back at 12 AM again. It's a really cool mechanic, and I do like how Scott incorporated another minigame to each night. That also keeps the horror factor as well as fun, but either way, let's get on to night 2. Once again, night 2 is just the same as night 1 but harder. However, Foxy is now finally introduced into the game. The way he works is that you'll be able to hear his footsteps going from left to right in the room. If you were to check the left door when he is at the right, he can enter your room, which won't actually get you jump scared. Instead, you now have to check the closet. Going to the closet the first time you flash your light, a mini jump scare plays. Upon closing the closet doors and reopening, you can see that Foxy goes to a different stage. His face when he jump scares you is the last stage before he kills you, and his first stage is this little cute plushie of him. It is worth noting that he won't actually leave your room at this stage, so you have to constantly check in on the closet again like your bed. So it's best to avoid having Foxy get into your room since it is entirely preventable. But as soon as it started, night 2 is over. He left without you. He knows you hate it here. You are right beside the exit. If you can run, you can make it. It's too late! Hurry the other way around and find someone who will help. You know what will happen if he catches you. Tomorrow is another day. Night 3 and 4 don't have anything special about them besides the fact that it's harder than before, so I'm going to skip over both the gameplay for those nights and go straight to the minigames. This time, upon getting up from the colorful floor, you're able to exit the building and talk to various kids while walking home. My daddy says I have to be careful with him or he'll pinch my finger. He's a finger trap, he says. You better watch out. I hear they come to life at night, and if you die, they hide your body and never tell anyone. Why do you look so worried? See you at the party. Ha ha ha. I don't know, Sarah. Why do you think I'd be worried, you fucking bitch? Aren't you the kid who always hides under a table and cries? Ha 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 ha. No one else is scared. Why are you? Stop being such a baby. Are you going to the party? Everyone is going to the party. Oh wait, you have to go. It's your birthday. Haha. This is one of the most important pieces of information we have gathered thus far. If it's our party, why are we dreading it so much? That question will be answered later on, as Fredbear continues to follow us into our room and... Tomorrow is another day. Please let me out. Please. Please let me out. Upon entering night 5, you'll notice that something is off. There is no animatronic that can be seen anywhere. The Freddles are gone, Foxy's footsteps can't be heard at all, until... he's here. Night 5 serves as a sort of a mini-boss, with you having to go against Fredbear and only Fredbear. It takes the place of every single animatronic, being able to appear on your bed, your closet, and of course, on either side of the room. He has a much shorter timer before killing you, so you'll have to deal with him quickly. If you hear him laugh, that means he's either on your bed or in your closet, but be careful, as there can be fake laughs which will throw you off your trail. You deal with him like you would with the other animatronics. Shine your light if he's on your bed, close your closet if he's inside, and listen for breathing if he's at either door. It makes for a very unexpected and thrilling night, but it also makes sense as to why he's here for the final night. Wow, your brother is kind of a baby, isn't he? It's hilarious. Why don't we help him get a closer look? He'll love it. No, please. Come on, guys. Let's give this little man a lift. He wants to get up close and personal. No, I don't want to go. You heard the little man. He wants to get even closer. Ha ha ha. Hey guys, I think the little man said he wants to give Fredbear a big kiss. On 3. 1, 2...
Was that the bite of 87?
I'm sorry, I had to do it, alright? Obviously, I'll explain all of what the mini-games were theorized to mean when I'm done with the gameplay section, but we still aren't done yet, because we have the 6th night. The 6th night essentially serves as a mixture of both night 4 and 5. The night starts off with having to deal with all 4 of the main animatronics. However, once 4 AM hits, they all disappear and are replaced with Fredbear. This is the same as Nightmare Mode or Night 7, except instead of being replaced with Fredbear, it's a Black Bear variant known simply as Nightmare, working in the same way as Fredbear, but much more aggressive. Upon beating both modes, you'll get 2 different endings. I'll start with Night 6's ending first, and then doing Nightmare's ending. Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry. You're broken. We are still your friends. Do you believe that? I'm still here. I will put you back together. Perhaps some things are best left forgotten, for now. And on that note, let's talk about the aftermath of FNAF 4. While being yet another controversial game within the series at its launch, nowadays FNAF 4 is regarded as being one of the best games to this day, and it's kind of a no-brainer as to why. The atmosphere of the game is just truly terrifying, the sound design is amazing, and well, yeah, it should be since it's sound-based. The gameplay always has you on the edge of your seat, and the animatronic designs, god damn the animatronic designs. When discussing about FNAF 4's animatronic designs in modern day, I hear the opinion of how a lot of people don't really like them as much since they're trying too hard to be scary, which I can definitely see where they're coming from because big sharp teeth, but I just find them more badass than scary, which is why I myself praise them a lot. I wish Scott did keep Foxy's tongue though, because that just added to the cool factor of his design, but oh well. But enough about the design. What is probably the most important and still talked about part of the game is the lore. The bite, the crying child, Fredbear, the box. What's in the box? We finally knew what the bite of 87 really was, where it took place, and who did it. Or at least that's what we thought. During the Night 4 minigame, if you actually stay around the TV for a bit, it will turn on and show a commercial for Fredbear and friends dating 1983. This flipped the entire theory around this was the bite of 87, and it was now instead referred to as the bite of 83. However, some still believe this is the bite of 87. The commercial was just the date of when the restaurant opened, which is an interesting theory. However, around this time, one of the most infamous, if not the most infamous theory have been developed by none other than MatPat. To give some context around this theory, we actually need to fast forward to around September to December. On September 18th, 2015, MatPat hosted a live stream with his friend and invited a few popular YouTubers at the time to discuss theories. He had tried to do this previously, but the live stream ended crashing over and over, so it was cancelled and postponed until that day. It is also noteworthy that MatPat also tweeted at Scott Cawthon letting him know that the stream was going to take place. This stream, however, would also crash a few times as well, but it didn't end the stream this time and it still kept going, even though most of the YouTubers involved in the discussion had now left, except for Dako because he's just cool like that. During this stream, Scott had updated his website 3 times as if he was talking to the people on game theory, each being just a simple message. In FNAF 4, why would tiny toy Chica be missing her beak? What is seen in the shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. 4 games, 1 story. After this stream had ended, 3 months later, MatPat would release his infamous theory about FNAF 4, the Dream Theory. To dumb it down, Dream Theory was the theory that all FNAF games prior to that point were just a dream, hence the name. There was a decent amount of evidence backing it up, but was probably the most damning evidence was Toy Chica. In FNAF 4's Night 4 minigame, if you actually walk up a certain part of the map, there is a little girl you can find playing with minifigures of animatronics, one of which has Toy Chica without her beak. This was then used to connect Toy Chica actually losing her beak in FNAF 2 because the crying child remembers that specific figure and yada yada. Basically, it was all just in the crying child's head before he died. Now, for a while, this was actually probably the case. I mean, it was the most widely accepted theory at the time with the current context the community had, but nowadays, it's just a thing of the past. Oh yeah, there's also that one box, but even to this day, people cannot agree on what's inside the fucking thing, so I'm not even gonna try to bother with that. Along with the theories, of course, we had the YouTube scene, which once again, booming with content. Of course, we had Markiplier's once again iconic playthrough, which spawned memes like the previously mentioned bite of 87, and also, the first night is never usually that bad in any of the games.
So I'll play through.
But there was also a ton of content surrounding FNAF 4's gameplay, mostly because of the fact that it had so many extra modes after an update that Scott would release around Halloween. To my knowledge, this was the first time Scott had actually made an update to a FNAF game, adding more content after its initial release, with the addition of the Halloween update. There were a ton of challenges added, as well as some reskin design for the characters to make them more Halloween themed. But on to the challenges. Blind Mode, which is self-explanatory, Mad Freddy, which makes Freddy way more aggressive, Insta Foxy, which makes Foxy start in the closet no matter what, and All Nightmare, which has every single night make Nightmare appear. There was also the obvious 2020-2020 mode, however it was more of a secret mode that could only be accessed if you typed in 2020-2020 while in the extras menu, changing Nightmare to said mode, also known as Night 8. Defeating this mode would give you access to a reskinned Fun with Plush Trap minigame called Fun with Balloon Boy. First person to beat FNAF 4's 420 mode mode would be a Twitch streamer and YouTuber by the name of Dinky Donna, uploading a completion of the mode just a day after the game was released. However, Dinky was actually on Scott's VIP list, so he was able to get used to the game earlier than basically everyone. The first victor I could find that didn't get a copy early would be a different YouTuber named Mitch Bandicoot, completing 420 just a week after the game was released. However, this is not the hardest challenge in the game, which is what many people believe. Instead, it is nightmare mode with every single challenge stacked on top of each other, and the first person to do this is a FNAF Max mode enthusiast by the name of DJ Stir, who was able to beat this challenge just a day after the game was updated. Upon defeating this mode, you would get a star with a total of 10 earnable stars in the game, the most out of any game to this day. While the hard mode community was occupied with all of their challenges, we also had, of course, the music and animation side cooking up their own iconic media. The music scene at this time was starting to grow more and more, with even more artists trying out their hand at making FNAF music. Shadow's Never Be Alone, Try Hard Ninja's Bringing Us Home, which has a fan-made SFM music video with a shit ton of views. EA Games' Break My Mind, Made Wants to Battle with a bunch of FNAF 4 songs, holy shit, and obviously TLT with I Got No Time, which, side note, the instrumental for this song is insanely fucking hard. The animation side of things had a lot of SFM videos, and of course, Pymations with its FNAF 3 animation, and then eventually FNAF 4 the next year. And to end it all off, the hoaxes for this game. Now at this point in time, hoaxes had basically just fizzled out because people either didn't want to put time into making them, and well, the community was just getting smarter to not trust random shit. The only notable hoax I can think of during this time would be Nightmare JJ, which was actually created by none other than fellow YouTuber GoMotion. But that's basically it. So I guess that's basically it now. 1 year and 4 games, Scott Cawthon had gone from a failed game developer giving it one last shot to now a man with a game series that millions of people recognize and enjoyed. He had updated his website with a render of every single FNAF animatronic with a thank you message. It was a sweet send-off and honestly just made me realize how fucking insane Scott is as a solo dev. He made 4 amazing horror games within a year that changed the indie horror game landscape forever, and even horror in general, with iconic characters that— wait. You have to be fucking— September 8th, 2015, the design of Endo 2 would be changed, and leading up to September 22, every single animatronic would slowly follow suit until they were all converted into what is now known as the Adventure designs, and the next FNAF title was announced. FNAF World, releasing in 2016. No early release bullshit. Surprisingly, a new website was also made for FNAF World teasers as well, simply called FNAFWorld.com, and on October 17th, 2015, the site had revealed that a musician by the name of Leon Riskin would be behind the game's original soundtrack. For the rest of the year, ScottGames.com would receive quite a lot of changes, but it wasn't always related to FNAF World. There were some teasers for the previously mentioned FNAF 4 Halloween update, and then Scott Cawthon dropped the trailer for FNAF World on November 2nd on his YouTube channel. Now you may notice that you can't find this trailer on Scott's channel anywhere, instead only being able to watch a re-upload of it on GameSpot, and that's because the backlash of this was so bad that it ended up being removed. To reflect this, Scott updated both ScottGames.com and FNAFWorld.com on November 6th to a blank screen. However, upon brightening the image, an image of Mangle assumably being hung was shown, with the message, "See what you've all done." This was quite concerning to fans, as they speculated that this was how Scott felt because of the reception of the trailer or his current mental state. However, it was eventually revealed that instead of being hung, it was just Mangle biting the same paddle ball seen at the end of the trailer. On December 14th, the Mangle photo on ScottGames.com then changed to a book cover of all things, being the first look at a FNAF novel, and a release date of the 22nd. Then a day later, the title of the actual book was revealed, being FNAF The Silver Eyes, and 2 days after that, Scott just said fuck it again and published the book on the 17th. This man really cannot keep his promises with release dates, huh? For a short time from December 24th to January 4th on FNAFWorld.com, the original FNAF World teaser image was back with a more fitting look for the holiday season. Wait, who the fuck are these guys? The game would actually be released in 2016, on the 21st of January, available for $10 on Steam. However, on February 19th, it was announced a second update for the game would be coming soon, which was eventually released 3 months later on May 13th, and on that note, let's talk about both versions of the game. So covering this game is going to be a little bit more different than the others since it's a lot more unique compared to the other FNAF games, obviously. I'm gonna kinda mix the gameplay, aftermath, and community bits together since if I'm being honest, I just don't have as much to say about this game compared to the rest. Starting with the gameplay, upon opening the game itself, you are greeted to a very mysterious intro when starting up the game for the first time. Everything that happens out there has an effect here. Do you understand? This is a safe place. This is a sanctuary. But something has gone wrong. Now it can be seen here. Something went very wrong. That's why I'm here. But I won't let the same happen to you. I will put you back together. Huh. Well, that was weird. Upon starting a new game, we are greeted by Fredbear, who tells us that something is wrong in the animatronic village, so it's now up to us to check it out. Every time we enter a loading screen, we get a little info card of one of the animatronics, and it just so happens to be that in one of these little cards, it basically confirms that Spring Bonnie is non-binary, so that's cool. Also, a character named Lolbit is introduced here, who's kinda just like a different Foxy variant. I'm sure there'll be a one-off forgettable character. Anyways, the gameplay goes like this. We walk around getting closer to our objective, fight monsters, unlock new characters, buy upgrades, and well, that's kind of it. I need to come clean. I genuinely just do not care about this game. Like, I know it's an important part of FNAF's history and all, but it's just really not my type of game personally. And I mean, it seems that way for a lot of the FNAF community as well. When this game first came out on Steam, it originally cost $10 and was the most expensive FNAF game at that point. And immediately there was just so much backlash because it was just kind of a generic RPG spin-off. It got so bad that Scott himself took down the game after a short while, giving everyone who originally spent money on it full refunds, and then releasing the game for free on Steam and Game Jolt as well. Oh, but there were still a bunch of YouTubers who made videos on the game. Almost every single YouTuber who played all 4 of the last FNAF games did not even touch this one. The only notable people I could find that did make a gameplay series on FNAF World were fucking Dan, TDM, and Think Noodles, and they were Minecraft YouTubers at the time. You wanna know what the cherry on top for this is? The most popular song for this game was created by the guy who made Story of Undertale. Yeah, I'm done talking about this game. Hate me all you want for not going as thoroughly into this game as the other FNAF games, but it is just so irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, man. Like, the most memorable thing about this game to me is the original soundtrack. In fact, during the same time, there was actually a FNAF fan game that was released that people just could not get enough of. So at this point, fuck it. I'm just gonna talk about that instead because it probably had a bigger impact to FNAF than this game. So sorry to all 3 FNAF World fans out there, but we're moving on. Going a little bit backwards in time, on November 28th, 2015, a small SFM animator and game developer by the name of Nixon would post a trailer for a FNAF fan game called The Joy of Creation, a FNAF 4 and Boogeyman inspired game, which also got its name from FNAF 1's Night 5 phone call that was reversed, although it was misheard. Just 2 days later, a demo of the game would be released. Now at the time this demo was available to the public, there was really nothing like it at the time. The game had amazing graphics and animations. It was made on Unreal Engine, so everything was in real-time 3D, and it was just a smooth experience in general. The only other games like this at the time were Five Nights at the Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket, both created by Rooney and utilize the same engine, although with a little bit less polish. The Joy of Creation, however, while a lot more technologically impressive, the demo suffered from one key aspect. It was just really fucking boring. The gameplay loop just consisted of going around in a circle and flashing your light with no time limit, so it literally just got boring within 30 seconds. However, Nixon then had an idea that no one had actually executed at the time. He was going to make a free roam FNAF game. Hey, get the fuck out of here! 5 months later, Nixon would then drop the trailer on his YouTube channel for The Joy of Creation Reborn on April 16th, 2016, which also happened to drop an alpha build of the game at midnight. It's also notable to add that Scott Cawthon had actually seen this trailer and commented on it, giving his approval of the game. Now, while the game was released at this time, we need to fast forward around a month to May 15th, because this was the version that most people know was released, the beta version. While there were already YouTubers who were playing the game before this was the version that most people remember because it contains all 4 animatronics that in the past versions of the game were actually slowly added till the release of the beta. The gameplay is honestly really simple. It was just like a Slender the 8 Pages style game, except with different animatronics in different settings and a timer. But this game was so successful it caught the attention of a lot of people at the time, because nothing like this was ever done before. The gameplay, while definitely flawed, worked pretty well, and the jump scares were definitely one of the biggest upsides the game had, especially with this being the birth of the iconic Bonnie Death Punch. Fuck off. The success of this beta then led to the release of the Halloween edition, which ended up being a separate style of game and featuring a Springtrap design. Both of these games were very well received and had a lot of YouTubers playing them, which definitely contributed to its popularity and securing its spot at being one of the best FNAF fan games of all time. Going back to focusing on old ScottGames.com, up until February 19th, 2016, the website would be promoting the Silver Eyes novel, but the very next day, that's odd. 17 faint lines against the black background, which surprisingly did absolutely nothing when brightened except making the lines more visible. 6 days later, one of the lines would be updated to have the letter I, and when brightened, the image also contained an N, so it was clear that the rest of the 16 lines were supposed to be letters. Quite a bit of time would actually pass by before we would get another update to the teaser. Going into March on the 11th, all we got was another I. Are you fucking serious? Upon brightening the image, however, an A was now revealed this time. Interesting. Another sizable break from updating, an O appeared, and then the previous A was much more visible. After an April Fool's teaser for FNAF World's second update, 2 days later we would have another revealed letter. If you brighten the image this time, it would not only show the previous N, also the word never below all the letters. And then Scott decided to stop fucking around by only revealing 2 of the same letters because on April 24th, we finally got the full reveal of the next game, Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. There was never just one. Well, so much for the final chapter, I guess. This was our first look at a character that would be later known as Circus Baby, and nearly a month later, we finally got a much better look at her, and we would continue seeing the same view for a fucking month! Oh wait, the game trailer was released. Well, that was fast. This would actually be the last video Scott Cawthon would post on his channel to this day, but it was a pretty damn good send-off considering we got some crazy looks at the new animatronics, and even a release date of fall the same year. June 17th, a different animatronic reveal on Scott's website that was nowhere in the trailer at all, and then the same deal on July 10th. Now brightening this image actually revealed the faint face of Circus Baby in the top right. Then 12 days later, another new teaser, and upon brightening this image, we got our first look at the mini arenas. I'm sure these little things won't be a problem in game. We continue going a while without any new teasers. However, on August 8th, for the second anniversary of the series, we got some behind the scene looks for FNAF 1. This has nothing to do with sister location, but it was in between the teasers and it's just an awesome boundary break. Around the same time, someone on the FNAF subreddit had leaked a pretty important thing about the game. It would have actual voice actors and would be the first FNAF game to have voice acting besides Scott Cawthon being phone guy. I'm not counting you, FNAF World! Because of the situation, Scott decided to take this as an opportunity to troll and even add more story to the game, updating his website to display this fake cancellation announcement on August 16th, which upon brightening actually revealed that one of the animatronics had their shows cancelled due to gas leaks. This is something I have never seen a game dev do until this point, and I really can't think off the top of my head an indie game dev using leaks to their advantage, so this was a pretty genius move from Scott. Another 12 days later, got another photo of this mystery animatronic, which upon brightening actually gave the release date of the game, October 7th, 2016. I wonder if Scott's actually gonna keep his promise. Oh wait, he did? Oh shit. Sister Location was definitely a lot more ambitious than the last 4 games, besides World of course, but it also happens to be one of the most linear games out of them all. Without wasting any time, I'm just gonna get straight into it.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her?
Starting with night 1, it's honestly just a nothing burger of a night. We do as we're told, and then we go home, and also eat popcorn while watching a shitty TV show. Between each night, we hear a young girl talking to her father.
Daddy, you let the other children go see her. Why won't you let me go?
Night 2 is kinda the same as night 1. However, when we get to Circus Baby's auditorium, she actually speaks to us and tells us to get under the desk and use a makeshift shield sort of device, preventing any animatronics from getting to us. The gameplay for this night is honestly pretty boring. All you gotta do is just hold down left click when the shield starts to move and keep it closed. It's that simple. After that whole really nonchalant debacle, we crawl back, but instead of ending our night there, we have to crawl through Bellora's gallery to fix something in the breaker room. The gameplay for this section is just like red light, green light. We can walk or run through the room, and if you hear music getting louder, stop until it goes away. Rinse and repeat to the breaker room. Upon getting to the breaker room, we now have to deal with another animatronic, Funtime Freddy. I have no fucking idea why this bitch is in the breaker room, but what we have to do is restart everything using a flip-up monitor and hold down a button to reset each individual room. However, this makes a lot of noise, which disturbs Funtime Freddy, and if you're too loud, you'll die. So to counter this, you can press space when you're out of the monitor to tell Freddy to go back to the stage. But if you're in the middle of restarting a room, it'll slowly go down, so you need to balance the two between restarting the room and not dying. After all that's said and done, you have to go through Ballora Gallery again, except she's absent this time, and then we get to go home and continue our shitty show. Would you believe me if I said this was the most fun part of the game? Night 3 is when things start to get pretty odd. Checking the lights for Ballora Gallery, you get to see a fucking eldritch horror abomination. And checking Funtime Foxy, well, he's literally just not there, but we ignore that. We are told by Hand Unit, that's the name of the robot, I completely forgot to introduce it, but whatever, that we need to go through Funtime Foxy's room. However, there is an option to actually go to Circus Baby's room. We'll talk about that later. Going through Funtime Foxy's room is basically just another red light, green light type game, except instead of having to listen to music, we use a flash beacon which drives away Foxy. If you see Foxy while going forward, just flash your beacon until he's gone. The game tells us that we need to use this beacon as little times as possible, but that's literally just a lie. Fuck you, Hand Unit. Getting to the room at the other side, we have to follow a few instructions with doing some maintenance work with Funtime Freddy. Holy fuck! After getting this weird button looking thing, we have to press a button near the Bonnie Puppet bow tie, except this fucker is gone, so we have to bait him out and press the button. After that, we go back to the room and... What the fuck? So we actually didn't die at all, but instead we are transported inside a spring lock suit within a room called the Scooping Room, which if you want to see why it's called that, just take a look at Ballora. Damn, bitch, why are you looking at me like I did it? When the faceplates open up, Night 4 begins. The gameplay for this night is to tighten these spring locks found all around the faceplates. However, there's also these previously mentioned mini arenas that you have to shake off before they reach the top. Otherwise, you just die. However, if you shake, it also loosens the spring lock, so you need to balance it out. This seems like a pretty cool and easy section, right? Absolutely fucking not. I have no fucking idea what was going through Scott's head when he designed this night. This shit fucking sucks. I spent way too long trying to beat this night because it is just so abnormally hard. And before you say some shit like, ooh, skill issue, everyone else thought so too. It got to the point where a day after the game was released, Scott updated the game with a patch to make this night easier. But it's still hard as balls. I kid you not, there are tutorials on YouTube with hundreds of thousands of views detailing on strategies how to beat this night, which literally involve a stopwatch. Playing this night genuinely felt like Scott Cawthon was personally telling me to blow my fucking brains out. The time I spent on this night was literally the time I spent beating FNAF 1. It's so bad and immediately killed the little enjoyment I had for this game. This shit just fucking sucks so hard, and I do not believe this was play tested whatsoever. Whew. Anyways, beat the night first try, baby. Would you believe it if I said this game actually ends at 5 nights? Because yes, it actually does. So after we just kind of brush off the fact that 2 technicians were killed via hanging, we crawl through Funtime Foxy's room again. But he isn't really a threat this time around. We have to do another mini game like with Funtime Freddy, except with Baby instead, sending her off to the Scooping Room. However, she hijacks the Hand Unit and orders us to follow some steps, like entering numbers in a keypad and then gaining a card. After sending her off, we exit and follow her directions to go to the left side of the room, which leads to another room, the previously mentioned Scooping Room. Upon entering this room, we are greeted to the face of the Scooper, and then yeah, we just fucking die. So to cut a long story short, all the animatronics just kind of merged into one called Ennard, then tricked us and scooped out our guts, then crawled into our skin to look like a person, hence the weird purple eyes at the end. Yeah, what the fuck? But what if I don't want to get scooped? Well, boy, do I have some news for you. Every time you die, there's a chance of a minigame appearing. However, this doesn't really matter since you can just play it within the extras page. You complete this minigame by giving all the kids their cupcakes in a specific order, then get this ice cream at the end, go back to the beginning, and then kill this kid. We were able to get access to a secret room in Night 5. Instead of listening to Baby and going to the left, you can go to the right and enter a secret room, which gives us traditional FNAF style gameplay. This secret night is called Ennard Night because we now have to prevent Ennard from getting into our room. Although you really gotta be saving your power as much as possible, only checking the cameras when you need to and relying more on sound cue, because there's very little room for error when it comes to the power. However, upon defeating this night, we get to go home and enjoy our show instead of dying.
As the trees sway in the wind,
so also do emotions sway between star-crossed lovers.
You burned down my house?
You call that a house? It was like a morgue in there.
I may be undead, but you're heartless.
You need to see your son.
The baby isn't mine.
He ate the cat.
Sounds like something he got from your side of the family.
Well, how's this? I'm keeping the diamond ring.
The joke's on you. I found it in a kid's meal.
You bought a kid's meal? Oh, Vlad!
Clara.
As the hair on the back of a cat stands up straight, so also does the love between Vlad and Clara stand up against all obstacles. But what about the baby? What about the back child support? Stay tuned next season for those answers and more.
Bitch, how the fuck did you get in here? This is the non-canon ending of the game, while us getting scooped is the canon ending. You know how I said this game only has 5 nights? Well, that's kind of a lie. I mean, yeah, it does only have 5 nights in the base game. However, there is a 6th night, which is a custom night, which was only added a bit after the game's release due to the criticisms of there not being one, which was added on December 1st. Wait, is that Lolbet from FNAF World? Now, I don't know if I can actually call this a custom night because you can't change the values of the AI to your liking. It's more of a bunch of presets, but it is there, so whatever. And on that note, let's talk about the aftermath of this game. Well, this game definitely tried some different things, which I can appreciate. Ultimately, I just do not like this game very much. Even when taking Night 4 out of the equation, it has absolutely no replayability. The different gameplay each night is just not that fun, and the game itself really is just boring in general. Besides Entered and Custom Night, it's not all negative though, because I really do like the voice acting, character design, and bits of lore that came up with this game. Speaking of which, what were the theories and story people came up with? Starting with the story, since it's more straightforward, to get the main points, these animatronics were created by the purple guy, or as we now know him as Mr. Afton. But just to clarify, his name was actually revealed in the Silver Eyes, but I'm just bringing it up now. Okay, so I'm kind of going based off memory for this one, so if I get some things wrong, don't judge me. So Mr. Afton here created these animatronics to like kill kids or something like that, and had specifically programmed Circus Baby to count the amount of kids that were in a room. If there were only one in a room with her, she would offer them ice cream, and then kidnap the small fucker inside her chest cavity, which, you know, killed them. However, this kinda backfired a lot because it ended up killing his own daughter, so LMFAO! You know that custom night I was talking about? Well, if you actually beat each of the presets no matter what difficulty, it will show a cutscene of a man walking down the sidewalk while a bunch of people wave. But as we continue beating the presets, he starts to become more and more purple and rotten, which we now know is actually entered inside of our skin. Beating Golden Freddy mode, however, shows a different cutscene where we basically throw up entered out of the skin into the sewer. However, we come back to life somehow. Yada yada remnant yada yada. If you beat the max mode, which is Golden Freddy on very hard, we actually also get a special cutscene which reveals that we are actually playing as a man named Michael Afton, the son of Mr. Afton with Springtrap. This cutscene shows the aftermath of Fazbear's Fright burning down, but reveals that Springtrap is somehow still alive. And yeah, that's kinda it. That's the gist of the story bit. I'm not as familiar with Sister Location stories, so sorry if I got some stuff wrong. Anyways, on to the theories. While I'm not well versed into any of the theories at this time, I will talk about one very infamous theory about this game, adult theory. Now this theory was created by someone named Kane Carter, who I'm definitely sure will not come up in the future. Well, long story short, it was theorized that the animatronics in Sister Location, let's just say tended to get a bit quirky if you paid them. And I'm pretty sure there was actually a decent amount of evidence that supported this theory. However, it got debunked really fast, but it was such a problem of people actually believing this theory that Scott himself had to indirectly stop people from believing this, which I just think is really funny. If I'm kind of being honest, I feel like this theory just kind of started to form because some people thought Ballora was kind of a bad bitch. So the max mode side of this game is actually pretty interesting. When the custom night update was first released, it actually had to be nerfed twice to make it a bit easier, since it was seen as impossible on the pre-patch version. The last nerf happened on December 4th, 2016, which also happened to be the first person who would beat the mode would upload their completion to YouTube. Hippozilla was the name of this player who was the first person to beat Sister Location's 1020. However, it is very notable to actually point out 2 years after the game's release, someone by the name of Zombie Gabriel would actually beat and upload their completion of the pre-patch 1020, which was considered impossible until that point. For his efforts, he got a congratulations from Scott himself. Now let's talk about the fan songs and animations. Now there are obviously animations of this game being made at this time, but if I'm being honest, not a whole lot of them are very notable. On the fan song side, however, however, it was an entirely different story and actually where a lot of the animation focus went to. Now obviously we had TLT release their song for Sister Location, which has a crazy hard animated music video, but there are also two other songs which absolutely took over the fan song scene at the time. JT Music's Join Us for a Bite and Chaotic K9 Culture's You Can't Hide, or also known as CK9C. Now obviously these aren't the only 3 Sister Location songs released at the time, but they're the most notable. It would be a long while before we got our next game teasers. However, that didn't mean Scott's website or the community were dormant at all. 2016 did have some pretty memorable fan games that were released at this time, such as Pop Goes Arcade, which was created by hey, this is the same motherfucker who made Adult Theory, Five Nights at Candy's 2, an obvious continuation of the previous Candy's game, and Day Shift at Freddy's, which was created by Direct Doggo and is a visual novel parody of the FNAF series. Also on October 3rd, 2016, 4EX Kenshin would post a vlog about how he went to this FNAF-themed haunted house horror attraction. However, not only was he actually able to meet Scott, but even get a photo with him and gave Corey permission to post it online. At this time, this was one of the only photos of Scott Cawthon to be public, and to this day still is. 2016 did, thankfully pass by, and as 2017 rolled around, we also got some official FNAF and fan creations that were released. Two of the most notable fan games that came out during this time would be Five Nights at Candy's 3 and The Joy of Creation Story Mode, which is one of the most popular FNAF fan games of all time and regarded in the eyes of many to be the best. There was also this one YouTube animator by the name of Junior0437 who would post this short FNAF animation that was based around being a Christmas tape. Don't know if this style of content will catch on, but it's a pretty cool video. ScottGames.com would stay blank for over half the year until June 11th, 2017, when he updated the site to this piece of artwork. It was pretty cool but also confusing on what it actually meant, till 2 weeks later when his website was updated once again to tease a new novel based on FNAF called The Twisted Ones, which did release 2 days later as the teaser promised. This was also the first time an artist was officially hired by Scott Cawthon to work on the franchise, the artist being named yeah, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. She was known as Lady Fitzy online. Her art was pretty wicked though. I just hope she doesn't get into any controversy. Also during the summer, while I don't know what day this happened, around the month of June or July, Funko would gain access to the FNAF license and they would shadow release their first line of FNAF action figures at Target, which were of the original 5 characters from the first game. For FNAF's 3rd anniversary, we got some more behind the scenes screenshots that were uploaded to the website, which is really cool to see from Scott, but we also got Naked Springtrap. However, 11 days after the anniversary, something weird showed up on Scott's website. A never seen before sprite. Well, maybe it's just something Scott Cawthon had planned to use in his previous games but got scrapped. I mean hell, he hasn't posted a teaser for any game in almost a year. The dude is probably retired by now. I mean like even 2 months later it was still the same thing on the website. Maybe it's just the final thing he'd update his website with. Wait, what do you mean there's more sprites? 3 kids were now added to the image. Interesting. Next month, the website was updated once again to holy shit, Freddy Fazbear turned the kids into pizzas. Then finally on December 1st, we finally got confirmation that a new game was coming out. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator, coming soon with a delicious looking pie next to him. Yum. This was quite a huge deal in the community at the time because at this point we had gone so long without a new FNAF game and FNAF teaser in general. So seeing a new title like that was supposedly coming out soon was very exciting. When Scott meant coming soon, however, he meant soon, because right after that teaser, next day, the gameplay and release date was revealed to be December 4th. What the fuck is this? It seems like a troll game at first. Nonetheless, it was coming out in 2 days. The next day, the website was updated to coincide with the release date, and on December 4th, 2017, he dropped the game for free on Steam. Are you fucking serious? You're telling me we waited a year just for this shit? Like what the fuck was Scott Cawthon thinking? Wait, what's going on? Okay, this was not what I was expecting. What the fuck am I supposed to be documenting? What am I?
Begin audio prompt in 3,
2, 1.
What the fuck? Okay, so I think it's pretty obvious at this point this game is definitely not what it seems to be. However, there's not actually as much to say about the gameplay of this entry compared to the rest of the game. So I'm gonna go through this one much more quickly. This game actually has two different main stages, the pizzeria management part of the game, and then the more traditional FNAF gameplay part of the game. You will go through both of these stages each one time every day from Monday to Saturday for a total of 6 days. Let's go through the pizzeria management part of the game first. So essentially all you need to do during this part is to buy stuff that can improve one of the 4 areas of the pizzeria: atmosphere, health and safety, entertainment, and bonus revenue. There's also another factor called liability risk, but I'll talk about that later. During this section though, you can place, remove, or even play some of the things you've bought. Mainly the things you can play are the arcade machines or attractions, but you can only do so 10 times a day as each play takes up a token. You can also accept sponsorships from companies for extra revenue, but that'll come into play later. Speaking of which, this isn't important to the gameplay, but the art for these ads were done by a new face in the series, Claudia Schroeder, also known as Pinky Pills, who would continue to do art for the franchise later alongside Lady Fitzy. Haha, I hope she doesn't do anything weird. After you're done with this section, you can then move on to working your day shift. Now this part of the game is relatively simple compared to how it looks. To progress through the day, all you have to do is complete different things in the task menu. However, upon clicking on one of these tasks, it'll cause a noise. You can also check the left or right side of you, which will be event, but that will prevent you from moving forward with your task. Along with running a task, it'll increase your temperature, which you need to manage, otherwise you'll just die from heat. Main 2 things you need to manage besides completing tasks while playing this section is heat and sound. Too much sound will attract things to you, but you can ward them off by shining your flashlight down the void. Also, you do have the option to turn off your computer, but upon turning it back on does take some time and create sound. The 3 other things you can do with your computer but prevent you from doing your tasks is using motion sensors, playing audio within your vents, and being able to turn on a more quiet fan. Decreases temperature while not being as loud. The only catch with these, however, is that you can only do one at a time. If you also accept an ad, there's a chance it can play during your shift, which causes a lot of noise. And that is basically the gist of the gameplay. Threats can be added throughout the week. One way they can be added is after you're done with the day shift. After each day, you'll find a scrapped animatronic outside your pizzeria. You can choose to either throw it away or salvage it for parts for cash. If you salvage the animatronic, you'll have to play 5 different audio prompts and then watch out for any movements, which upon moving, you can tase the animatronic, but only 3 times before it starts to lose value. If you get jump scared by the animatronic, you won't gain any money and it'll start to roam around during the office segment of the game. If you don't get jump scared, you'll get the money, but it'll still start to roam around and make the office segment harder. There are a total of 4 different animatronics you can scrap. That's kind of the gist of the entire gameplay for this game. Well, there also are a lot of those arcade machines with secrets in them, but I'll get into those later. For now, let's talk about the 6 different endings you can get. First, you have the bad ending, which is achieved after you've thrown away at least one of the animatronics you can scrap. At the end of the week, if you haven't gotten any of the other endings, Cassette Man, who's the guy who talks in the cassette tapes, congratulates us but then immediately terminates our employment. So that's great. The mediocre ending is earned if you complete the entire game with a Faz rating of 0 and not buying anything for the pizzeria, which is honestly just really funny to me. Then there's the blacklisted ending, which is achieved after having a liability risk of more than 50 on the last day. After that, we have the bankruptcy ending, which is achieved if you spend all your money on a lawsuit, which I forgot to mention. If your liability risk goes up too much, there's chances of lawsuits occurring that you have to spend money dealing with, and if you spend all your cash on one, you'll get this ending. The insanity ending follows right after, which occurs after you buy Egg Baby and do some specific steps in order during the office segment, which reveals a bunch of blueprints and some dialogue from the cassette man. We learn from him that apparently the souls within the animatronics are never able to rest, so he has plans to gather every single animatronic in one place and destroy all of them. Right after this is revealed to us, we are declared insane when we actually aren't, and instead just saw things we weren't supposed to see. The last ending of the game, which goes by the good or completion ending, has been confirmed to be the canon ending of the game and to the series as a whole, which is achieved after you've salvaged every single animatronic without going bankrupt.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
Congratulations on completing your work week. We apologize if your situation wasn't presented to you in a completely honest fashion when you first started, but it was important that your intentions and actions be genuine. Here at Fazbear Entertainment, we value fun, family, and food. But more importantly, we value our commitment to atoning for past mistakes and tying up loose ends. Thank you for your participation. There is no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity. Please accept this certificate of completion. Goodbye for now, and thank you for taking this journey with us.
That, let's talk about the aftermath of this game. While I'm not as familiar with this game compared to the original 4, it's still an amazing title within the series and a great send-off to the story. While FNAF as a whole was definitely on a decline compared to 2014 and 2015, I'm glad Scott was still adamant on finishing the story, and it really paid off, especially with his speech for the completion ending. Now I just have to gush a bit about this ending, cause holy fuck was Scott cooking when he wrote that speech. It's honestly one of the coolest lines of dialogue I have ever heard. Something that I also didn't mention but will now, is that if you play certain mini games you've bought in a secret way like Midnight Motorist, Fruity Maze, Security Puppet, and also salvage all of the animatronics, you get this image, which is assumed to be the names of the original kids within the missing children's incident, with the grave covered by the grass theorized to be the child that inhabits Golden Freddy, and the grave all the way in the back near the tree theorized to be the crying child. Back to the completionist ending though. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from my memory, the cassette man who is speaking here is actually the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment, Henry Emily. The girl mentioned in this speech, Elizabeth, is actually the daughter of William Afton, who is actually the same Mr. Afton mentioned in Sister Location, meaning that William Afton is also Purple Guy and Springtrap. Henry Emily essentially lured everyone to this one location, including Springtrap, who is now called Scrap Trap and looks like, He sets the remaining animatronics, William, us the player, and himself ablaze, wanting this to now just be all forgotten. If I had a nickel every time a character in this series set a place on fire, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice. Now, I don't exactly know what the public perception of this game was back then, but nowadays it is definitely looked upon very well and for good reason. There's just nothing really wrong with this game, and it's a good spin-off while also being a main title within the series. There's not a whole lot of YouTube content based around this game though, sadly, besides the occasional Let's Play of course, and the only song that I could find that's really based on this game is CG5's Labyrinth, which people keep fucking commenting on my fan songs video that I missed it. You can stop commenting that now. But this game definitely deserves a lot more love than it has gotten, so please just check it out. It's free on Steam and just a fun playthrough in general. The rest of this video is gonna be formatted a bit differently because I have now covered all of the base FNAF games. I'm aware there are still more FNAF games to come after this, which spoiler alert, yeah, this isn't the last FNAF game, duh, but I'm not going to go as in depth on those. I'm just going to now cover all the events that happened in a specific year, and certain games that are released within those years will be included in those. But of course, some events will be talked about longer than others. But hey, let's start at 2018, shall we? Okay, literally nothing happened for the first half of 2018 that I can remember. Well, but actually, shut up, I'm gonna talk about this. So on June 27th, 2018, a game that was supposed to be an add-on for Pizzeria Sim but got too big was released called Ultimate Custom Night. Now there are a bunch of teasers for this game, but they honestly just don't hit as hard as the earlier ones. So just know that they happened and existed. Fun fact though, this game's release was actually delayed for a little bit because of a single YouTuber that Scott Cawthon wanted him to be playing the game on day 1, but couldn't since he was on vacation. And that YouTuber was Dawko, who also made a bet with Scott that if he beat the max mode for the game, he would get an exclusive interview with him. Speaking of, however, let's talk a little bit about the game itself. So while this game is confirmed to be non-canon by Scott and just a spin-off, it hasn't stopped the community from forming theories about the game, and the most popular theory surrounding this game is that you are actually playing as William Afton in some sort of purgatory state, forced to be tortured by these animatronics forever. This game essentially combined a lot of the major FNAF characters throughout the series into one game where the player had to face all of them at once. I'm not going to go into what every single animatronic does because that would add like a solid 10 minutes to this video, even just explaining them really simply, but there is a video from Manaxa which does an amazing job at explaining the competitive scene of the game. But overall, there are a total of 50 characters with a max AI limit going up to 20 of course. The way the game works is that you can get 10 points for each AI level on any given animatronic, so overall you can get 10,000 points. But there are actually some secret characters not within the menu, so the max is actually 10,600. Obviously there is a rush to see who was the first person to beat this mode. I'm not actually going to spoil who was the first person to beat this mode, not because I want to steal the limelight from them, but because I really do want you to check out Manax's video on the topic after you're done watching this video though. But just know that Dawko did eventually beat the max mode during a stream and uploaded a separate video of his completion on July 9th of that same year, which is now one of Dawko's most viewed videos and contains one of his most iconic moments, that being his very emotional reaction to beating the mode. As promised, Dawko was able to get his interview with Scott Cawthon, but before that, the third and final FNAF book within the trilogy was released on June 26th, and then on August 8th, the 4th anniversary of FNAF, Dawko dropped his interview with Scott Cawthon. Like with the Manaxa video, I'm not going to go into every single tidbit that was talked about within it, because I really do also recommend you watch this one as well. It really is just a great watch and super interesting to hear from Scott Cawthon, as well as watching Dawko being excited to ask questions of course, and this video has been a source for a lot of the information that I have repeated, so please give it a shot after you're done watching this video. One notable thing, however, that I will mention in this interview is that Scott talks a lot about a different game studio working for the franchise, which has never been done before because Scott has always been a solo game developer, besides the occasional help from voice actors and artists, so it's exciting to hear what other people have been cooking up as well. That was about everything interesting that happened in 2018, so let's move to the next year. 2019, while not being remembered as a particularly interesting time in FNAF history, it does have some notable events and 2 different games actually being released, both of them not being developed by Scott Cawthon himself, so let's just get right into it. On March 29th, 2019, after Scott Games had been entirely blank for over half a year, it was quickly changed to this teaser, FNAF Help Wanted VR, which obviously from the title is a VR game. Now fun fact about this poster actually is that this is not the first iteration of it. It actually used a different looking Funtime Foxy and Spring Bonnie model, which were found out to actually be fan-made, which ended up causing a bit of controversy, but it was acknowledged quickly and changed to be this one you see here. Also, the company behind this game would be Steelwool Studios, which previously had worked on a handful of VR titles, but this was their first project with the FNAF IP. Only 2 months later, on May 28th, the game would be released to very positive reception, and is often regarded as one of the best VR titles even to this day. To dumb it down, the game is essentially a mix-up of a lot of older FNAF titles, but being able to be played in VR, and is in the perspective that the game itself is actually made by Fazbear Entertainment, and a recreation of these fictitious scenarios. Yeah, alright buddy. Along with recreations of the older games, there are also some newer game modes as well that are available to be played and are pretty fucking terrifying. This would also be the start of Steelwool trying to take the FNAF lore into their own hands with the introduction of Glitch Trap. It was apparently, wait, William Afton? No. Wait, you're telling me after Pizzeria Sim, while still having some mysteries, the game essentially gave a perfect ending to the story? This motherfucker somehow put his soul into a VR game? Oh my god. Yeah, I don't care anymore. I appreciate Steelwool for trying to extend the story, but I am not trying to think about all that. FNAF's story ended at Pizzeria Sim for me. This game is still good though, even with this stupid fucking bunny bitch over here. 2 months after this game was released, there would also be a very important video that would be posted on July 25th, and that video would be called Fazbear Entertainment Video Manual by a channel called Squimpus McGrimpus. This video would be a fan-made analog horror short that essentially planted the seed for FNAF and analog horror becoming very intertwined with each other. Others would follow soon after making their own versions of FNAF analog horror, also called FNAF VHS, which has become a very popular subgenre within the FNAF community. Although there is some controversy around these type of videos, with some saying how this is scarier than anything Scott has put out, or some people taking the spin that these creators put on the FNAF series as actual canon to the real series and yada yada. Either way, it definitely did start to popularize FNAF again, and this was the time that FNAF would start to increase in the public eye. Before I do end off this section though, I gotta point out that the creator of this series was later exposed for being a groomer slash pedophile, so I don't condone any of their actions, but it is a very important moment in FNAF history that I gotta mention. So, wow. Going to now FNAF's 5th anniversary on August 8th, Scott would update his website to this teaser. There were 4 animatronics we had never seen before, so this was assumed to be a new game with the release date of 2020. Over a month later, on September 29th, the website was updated once again to display only one of the animatronics, which was obviously this game's Freddy Fazbear variant. On that same day, FNAFworld.com of all things was actually updated to this. Was taken down a day later. The reason for this teaser being taken down was because Scott now saw it as it being a bit too over the top, with the way Freddy had a bulge and this wolf girl, let's just say had some interesting choice of clothing. On November 22nd, 2019, Scott's website would be changed to another teaser, but of a different game, FNAF Special Delivery. With an AR tag, fans are speculating on what kind of augmented reality game this would be, but they wouldn't really have to, since the same day would be the drop for early access to some people, and then the game being out publicly just 3 days later. The game was developed by Illumix and was actually a mobile game of all things, which was kinda along the lines of Pokemon Go, but don't quote me on that since I literally have never seen gameplay of this game whatsoever. Gee, I hope this game doesn't end up creating a bunch of weird color schemes of the main animatronics that Funko mass produces figures of that nobody buys because they're ugly as fuck. That would be kind of a shame. Haha. Oh, come the fuck on! As the 2010s were about to end, there was actually quite a few interesting things that happened in just the month of December alone. On the 3rd, Scott Cawthon dropped Freddy in Space 2, a spin-off side-scrolling platformer that was made to bring awareness to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital fundraiser, which is what this previous freaky-ass trailer was for. On the 17th, Flat Mode for Help Wanted was released, meaning you could play the game without a VR headset, although I really wouldn't recommend it since it kinda takes away from the experience. 9 days later, another FNAF book was released. Now I know I said that the 4th Closet was actually the last book, which technically it still is, but this book, Into the Pit, was more of a spin-off series that contained 3 short stories within it, kinda like Goosebumps' series Triple Header, but with FNAF concepts. Now finally, the 2010s was a thing of the past. The 2020s were just about to start. 2020 definitely didn't have the best start of a decade. With the rapid spread of the COVID pandemic and lockdowns, as weird as it is to say this, it was definitely a huge positive for FNAF as a franchise. Since everyone was locked inside their homes with nothing better to do, people were starting to go back to their old interests they had fallen out with. One of these interests for a lot of people being FNAF, and with the addition of social media and the increasing size of TikTok, FNAF was starting to gain traction once again. At first, it was definitely ironic, with memes like the man behind the slaughter, referencing the Living Tombstone's FNAF 2 song it's been so long, but as time went on, it just became people genuinely becoming interested in the franchise again. One major factor that contributed to this was definitely TikTok. And as much as people don't want to hear this, I think TikTok was a net positive for FNAF. Even if there is a lot of those lore misinformation videos like, ooh, Fritz died running, or ooh, FNAF VHS is so scary type shit, it still is an amazing outlet for people to show off their love for the franchise and might even be relevant in the future. A lot of the important things that happened this year were more towards the end of 2020, however, so let's talk about that. Around June to July, there was a massive leak that occurred of the designs of the new animatronics for the new game, which had also revealed the name of the game, Security Breach. And you know how and who leaked this? Fucking Funko of all people. Yes, you heard me correctly. The figure company had ended up leaking designs of the characters way before it was supposed to be shown to the public, which ended up causing a lot of drama. Obviously, there's backlash toward Funko for leaking the designs, which had actually been the second time they did this, but also because this merch was seen as lazy since they were found to just be retextures of already existing merch. However, there was also some backlash from fans towards Steelwool because for some reason they said they thought the designs were ugly, which first of all, these are not the real designs. They're scaled down with less detail for the figures. And second of all, okay, yeah, the retexture thing is valid. Anyways, before you know it, the 6th anniversary of FNAF is already here, and a lot of stuff was announced during this time. First of all, we got 2 unreleased teasers of the new game, which featured 2 new characters, as well as an update on the FNAF movie. Yeah, remember when this shit was announced in 2015? Well, Scott Cawthon had made a troll post about bad news for the movie, which ended up being him reading a lot of the scrap plots and then actually announcing that they were able to land on one and filming was starting in the spring of next year. Sadly, however, Scott also had to announce that the new game Security Breach would have to be delayed until next year as well, due to the pandemic sort of messing up things as well as the fact their scope for the game had just expanded. However, something that made up for this was something that probably no one had ever seen coming. On August 21st, 2020, Scott announced a new collaborative program titled the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative. To put it bluntly, this was a new program that Scott had made with ClickTeam to fund fan projects related to FNAF. Yes, you heard me right. Scott was now officially working with ClickTeam to bring this project to life, from originally using their first software to now working with them side by side. But anyways, what benefits were the people within the fanverse getting? Well, besides funding, even though the games were still to be released on GameJolt for free, ClickTeam will help with porting the games to console and mobile, and they will also receive help with making merch and toys for the games. In the initial lineup for the fanverse, it included 5 games. Emil Maka was going to create Five Nights at Candy's 4, Nixon was going to create the Joy of Creation Ignited Collection, Kane Carter was going to create Pop Goes Evergreen, Jonathan was going to create One Night at Flumpty's 3, and Fiznom was going to remake the original FNAF from the ground up. Wait, who the fuck is that last guy? So you might have noticed within that lineup, those are all actually creators and fan games I had talked about before. However, Fiznom was different from the rest since he was actually recreating one of the official games instead of making something completely new. But this didn't really matter at all because hell, I mean everyone was hyped for this. There was quite literally no downside to a project like this because it was giving back to the community and producing even more content, and everything was fine. Hopefully there's no controversy surrounding this anytime soon. On September 16th, we would finally get our first official look at Security Breach, with a teaser trailer being posted on the PlayStation YouTube channel. While not revealing much, it did showcase the size of the map, which was absolutely huge. Dawko would also of course react to this teaser and post it on his channel, which is just really fucking funny.
What's out there? This is not FNAF! That's not FNAF!
It's been such a difficult day for
no.
all of us.
Steelwool also took no time to release even more content, as on October 23rd, they released a paid DLC for Help Wanted called The Curse of Dreadbear. 2021 was a massive year for FNAF, to the point that I'm not going to stall at all. Let's just get right into this. I have no idea when this took place, but a user by the name of Kiyoshi on TikTok posted this video of him dancing in a Burger King uniform to join us for a Bite by JT Music, which is just really fucking funny. Only 2 months into 2021, on February 25th, PlayStation would host their State of Play game conference, which also contained a specific game. And of course, that game was Security Breach. The stream contained a new gameplay trailer, which I'm not even joking, the separate trailer video for the game has almost 20 million views to this day. So it really showed that people were hyped for this title, especially Dawko of course. 2 months later on April 28th, which fun fact is actually one of my brother's birthday, happy birthday little bro, Security Breach would release. Well, Fury's Rage, not the actual game. This was yet another spin-off, which was in the style of old arcade side-scrolling beat-em-ups, except with the Security Breach characters, of course. One thing I think is really funny about this game is the description, which just reads, "Just to be clear right off the bat, this game is called Fury's Rage, not Furry's Rage." So just get that straight. This is a game about unbridled anger and hostility. Got it? Also to note the credits, we had some returning names like Pinky Pills doing the artwork, Leon Riskin returning to do the music, and DJ Sturf actually testing out the game, which is very cool. However, just another 2 months later, an event happened that nobody could have seen coming. In June of 2021, someone had leaked Scott Cawthon's personal political donations online. Now this would have not been that big of a deal, however there are some very controversial names within that list of donations, including Republicans such as Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, and various others who are known to be very publicly anti-LGBTQ. With this information now public, immediately controversy ensued and speculation on whether or not Scott himself was anti-LGBTQ. Then a week later, after this information was leaked, he made a public statement on both the FNAF subreddit and his own website, which would be the last time he'd ever update the site, besides removing the post a bit afterwards. Before I say anything else, check out this awesome piece of fan art. Pretty amazing, right? I have boxes and boxes of artwork like this from fans that I have saved over the years. I've tried to answer as many letters as I could, and I apologize to anyone that I missed somehow. Someday when I have a bigger living room, maybe I'll be able to make a giant collage of all the fan art I've collected. Stuff like this has made it all the worthwhile over the last 7 years. I've had a blessed, fulfilling, and rich career. I've been shown great kindness, and I've tried to show great kindness in return. I've tried to make some good games, let the debate ensue, and I've witnessed the creation of possibly the most creative and talented fanbase on the planet. But here on the 7th anniversary of the first game's trailer, as I realized I was in my mid-30s when I created this series, now I'm approaching my mid-40s, I realized I missed a lot of things I got to focus on before FNAF became such a success. I miss making games for my kids. I miss doing it just for fun. And I miss making RPGs even though I stink at it. All this to say that I'm retiring. I have been shown tremendous love and support over this last week, a lot of which has come from the LGBTQ community. Kindness shown to me has been surreal. Is this the end of FNAF? No. This just means that someone else will eventually be running the show. Someone of my choosing, and someone that I trust. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, but an announcement will be made at some point. I have 6 kids now, although one of them is currently the size of a blueberry. I love them dearly. They are my whole world and my whole universe. I want to focus my attention on them, focus on protecting them, and spend my time making things for them. I only ask that my fanbase respect my decision. I still will be around, just not in the capacity that I used to be. What a blessed career I've had, what wonderful people I've met, and what a tremendous blessing to have been able to know all of you. Thank you so much. See you on the flip side. The Reddit response was much more thorough in explaining his perspective, but since it is quite long, I'll explain the gist of it. Scott essentially explains how this situation was affecting his life, such as being doxxed, having been sent death threats, and being labeled a homophobe. He defends himself with his donations, saying he donated to various amounts of people such as men, women, white people, black people, Republicans, Democrats, etc. He also says that he does not care about anyone's race, religion, gender, orientation, and treats everyone the same. He finally ends his statement with this: I'm a Republican. I'm Christian, pro-life, I believe in God. I also believe in equality, and in science, and in common sense. Despite what some may say, all of those things can go together. That's not an apology or a promise to change, if it's always the way it's been. If I get cancelled, then I get cancelled. I don't do this for the money anymore. I do it because I enjoy it. If people think I'm doing more harm than good now, then maybe it's better that I get cancelled and retire. I would accept that. I've had a fulfilling career. Besides, most things that people can take from you are things that never had much value to begin with. I have always loved and will continue to love this community and this fan base, even if someday it doesn't include me anymore. Now when it comes to this situation, this is definitely the most divided the FNAF community will ever be on a single topic, even to this day. I think Daka was the person who said it the best in his response to the entire situation. People are allowed to be upset with Scott and his choices, and can even decide to not support the franchise anymore because that is their choice. However, going as far as to dox and threaten Scott and his family is just unacceptable at all. Now, if you want my opinion on this situation, which I don't know how many of you actually do, but it's my video, I'm gonna say it anyways, I definitely don't think Scott is anti-LGBTQ at all. He made those donations with the mindset of bettering the country, not with the mindset of hating gay people or whatnot. And if you disagree with that, that is perfectly fine. Like Dako mentioned, you are allowed to have your own opinion and continue to support the franchise or not. Okay, to lighten up the mood, one really funny tweet that I remember seeing but can't find went along the lines of something like, how the fuck did Scott make this animatronic design and then donate $50,000 to Mitch McConnell after? Also, shout out to this one guy on Reddit who congratulated Scott for his child that was on the way. Fast forward a few months, on October 27th, 2021, PlayStation would host yet another State of Play game showcase, which would contain the final trailer of Security Breach and its release date, which I'll just have Daco tell you.
Oh my god! December! December! December!
They could never make me hate you, Daco. Like, there is literally no one else in this community who is as positive and hyped for the franchise as Daco is. A few days later on Halloween, we get our first entry from the fanverse that would be completed, which was One Night at Flumpty's 3. And then a few days later, right after the release of the game, Jonathan was outed for being a pedophile. Trying to strike a chord, and it's probably a minor. 2 months later, and as promised, Security Breach would be released on December 16th, 2021. Okay, so I'm not really gonna talk about what Security Breach is about because quite frankly, I have no fucking idea and I do want to play it myself since I haven't yet. But Jesus, when this game first released, the amount of bugs were crazy. At first, this game was pretty controversial because there were a shit ton of glitches at launch, with a lot of people calling Steelwool lazy for delivering an unfinished product. Or just the fact that there were a lot of features which were planned that ended up kicking the can, which could still be found within the game. I mean, I kid you not, there were literally videos with millions of views that just covered the game's glitches. Of course, the game would receive bug fixes later on, but yeah, the release was kind of a disaster. But this game did also kind of contribute to IShowSpeed's rise of fame with his over-the-top reactions to some of the jump scares.
I like 15-year-old girl!
There would also be some good fan songs released about this game, such as TLT's This Comes From Inside, Rocket Music's Total Insecurity, and Kyle Allen Music's Lights On. Also, if I'm being honest, the only reason I still kind of care about this game is because all of the characters are really fucking hot. If I'm being honest, 2022 was kind of a filler year for this franchise. Besides there being a shit ton of books being released and a free DLC for Security Breach being announced, I can't really think of anything else that happened, so oh wait, Hex released their first FNAF collab in February. If you don't know what Hex is, it's actually a company started by Daco and Hero Shark, which specializes in these really high quality FNAF plushies as well as occasional clothes, but it's mostly FNAF plushies. They were actually first founded in March of 2021, and then later their collab was announced in June of the same year, but the collab finally dropped in 2022. So yeah. Well, I guess that's kinda everything now. Fuck. 2023 would probably be one of the biggest years for FNAF, besides 2014 and 2015, so let's just get on with it. You know Lady Fizzy? Well yeah, in February of 2023, a user by the name of Spring Popo on the FNAF subreddit would gather a shit ton of evidence against Lady Fizzy of her doing some absolutely deplorable shit. Like, I'm talking about transphobia, writing fanfics about pedophilia and sexual assault, accusations of grooming and tracing other people's artwork, and being into Nazi ideology. These accusations actually started in 2019, but the reason I'm only mentioning it now is because Scott Cawthon not only came out of a 2-year hiatus on Reddit to comment on this, but also confirmed that she was fired from the franchise. So I guess cancel culture is beneficial sometimes. Also, Pinky Pills did come out to defend Lady Fitzy, but ended up deleting her comments right after Scott's reply. Hopefully this isn't foreshadowing towards anything bad or something like that. Ha 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 ha. So the FNAF movie, am I right? Would you believe me if I told you that it also got leaked? On May 6th, someone had took a phone recording of an early version of the first trailer for the FNAF movie and posted it online, which obviously went viral because people couldn't tell if it was real or not. However, it did actually end up being real, and Scott himself confirmed it under a post about the leak on Reddit. Many people were obviously very upset about this leak and refused to watch it. Not long after this, I kid you not, the leaker himself made a fucking apology video for leaking the trailer. I'm not even gonna show this because obviously this dude just wanted attention, but I think it's really funny how he got exactly what he wanted, but then realized he could probably be sued for his entire family tree since he broke an NDA. Either way though, a month later, on June 27th, we finally got an official trailer for the FNAF movie from Universal Studios themselves. We got a lot of good information from this trailer, such as the gist of the movie, which actors would play who, and of course, the release date. Also, my goat Corey was in the fucking movie, yeah! The film was revealed to now be behind the direction of Blumhouse instead of Warner Bros. Josh Hutcherson was revealed to be playing Mike, one of the main characters, Matthew Lillard, was revealed to be playing William Afton, and the release date of the film was October 27th, being both in theaters and straight to streaming on Peacock. Then a month later, after the first trailer was released, the DLC for Security Breach was released for free on July 25th, and unlike Security Breach, it was very well received even at launch, with not as many bugs. I hope this fun new free DLC doesn't get one of the Fanverse games cancelled. Are you fucking— Yeah, long story short, Fiznom's game FNAF Plus ended up getting cancelled partly because of Ruin. I'm not going to go into it at all, but I do talk about it more thoroughly in this video here if you're curious. But yeah, that fucking sucks. The Fanverse really is not going exactly the way it should be right now. 3 projects are still being developed with not many teasers or progress updates. One is completed but the creator is a loser creep pedo, and one is cancelled. Fuck. July 29th.
Teach your boys to become men before their teachers teach them to become women.
At least they're not being taught by Five Nights at Freddy's, because if you're taught by FNAF at Five Nights at Freddy's, you become Freddy Fazbear. And if you're Freddy
This meme honestly isn't even that funny if I'm being honest.
At least I'm not Kip Ashley, because if I
How the
was
fuck
Kip
did you get
Ashley-
here? As days went by, we were getting closer and closer to the FNAF movie. October hit, 27 days away. On the 18th, just 9 days away from the movie releasing, Scott would drop a game on GameJolt called FNAF The Movie, The Game, which ended up just being Freddy in Space 3. You guys remember how I mentioned speed, right? Well, he decided to play the Ruin DLC, and it ended up with him accidentally showing his little speed to the entire world. Glamrock Chica, how does it feel to be the reason that the biggest streamer on YouTube showed his dick online? What are you talking about? October 27th, 2023. Yeah, the movie dropped. Originally, people were kinda worried because the movie had debuted with a pretty low score on Rotten Tomatoes from the critic, but upon actually watching the movie themselves, yeah, fuck the critics. Obviously, it's personal opinion on whether you like this movie, but a majority of the fan base could agree that it was mostly perfect for the fans, which is who this movie was obviously made for. I can't go too much into the movie, but I will just say it definitely did not disappoint, especially with the cameo from Corey, MatPat, the fact that the Living Tombstones FNAF 1 song was used in the credits. Also, before this movie dropped on October 27th for the US, some theaters got it early and a fight broke out at one of the theaters toward the end. But to say this movie was a success would be an understatement. Not only did this movie make over 10 times its budget, but it also became Blumhouse's highest grossing movie to date. Despite the fact it went straight to streaming on Peacock, it was also the highest grossing horror movie for 2023, being titles such as Scream 6 and Megan. This was still not it for FNAF, however, as on December 14th, Steelwood would drop a sequel to Help Wanted, and then just 6 days later, we got an official FNAF licensed Roblox game, which was then immediately privated because there's actually a huge misunderstanding and now the entire game had to be scrapped and started from scratch. So this is it. We are finally at the current year of 2024. And with so much that has already happened and even more to come, for the last time, let's just get straight into it. In January, we were already kicking it off with a bang from Josh Hutcherson revealing that a sequel to the FNAF movie was in development, although not yet official. Also, MatPat revealed that he was retiring. Wait, what? On January 9th, MatPat had made an announcement on the Game Theory channel that he was going to be stepping away from YouTube after he had done 10 final theories. Obviously, this was huge news considering that MatPat was not only a monumental figure in the FNAF community, but YouTube in general. Thousands of people came to give their support in the comments, including Scott Cawthon himself. But for the next 10 weeks, MatPat would host one Game Theory a week before his final one on March 9th. On the 23rd of the same month, it was leaked that a new FNAF game was actually in development, although by a completely new studio that we had never seen before called Mega Cat Studios, and they were making a game called FNAF Into the Pit, based on the book of the same title. Despite this leak, Scott was able to make this into a positive thing, and had also revealed that this game was for the 10th anniversary of FNAF. Also with this, we got the return of FNAF hoaxes. Yeah, believe it or not, but someone had photoshopped part of Spring Bonnie's back and made it look like he was caked up as fuck, which while being obviously fake, was really funny. Like, goddamn, this bitch got a spring bakery. Going into February, sadly on the 1st, Illumix announced that FNAF AR was going to be discontinued and removed from app stores on the 3rd. It ended up being removed a day early. Then on March 14th, it was shut down completely. It does suck to see this game go, especially because it had a lot of potential, but it seemed like Illumix just weren't interested in the game anymore, since toward the end of its lifespan, there were less and less updates. Scott did acknowledge this and wished Illumix the best of luck for their future projects. However, let's turn back 5 days. March 9th finally rolled around, and MatPat hosted his final game theory. At the end of the video, MatPat had handed down the role of being the host to Tom Robinson, and we all got something we never expected.
I've been expecting you. Come, we have much to discuss.
Holy fucking shit. If you don't know why I'm freaking out, that was Scott Cawthon. I kid you not, but for the first time, Scott Cawthon was actually caught on film, like actually moving and shit. I know this sounds delusional, but you gotta understand that photos of Scott Cawthon in general were super rare. The dude is like a unicorn of a person. There are rarely any photos of this guy. In fact, one of the more recent photos of this dude is him taking a picture of a fan who somehow recognized him at a Chick-fil-A. And the mom of the fan didn't even know who he was, so she posted it to Instagram asking people who he was, which is just so fucking funny. But that goes to show you how much of a big deal this was. The first time Scott Cawthon was caught on film talking and moving was for MatPat's final video, showing up to your own movie premiere versus Pookie's retirement. A month later, we would get, guess what? Another controversy, woohoo! Around the month of April, a user on Twitter who I'll not be naming to prevent harassment had claimed to have an unreleased version of an already existing book called The Freddy Files, which was released on August 29th, 2017. This book essentially serves as the guide to FNAF, but this user claimed to have a different version of this book, which they nicknamed the Talbert Files. Okay, so first of all, who the fuck is Talbert?
Did somebody say Talbert Files?
This issue got so bad about whether this was fake or not that Scott had to come out and say that he had no idea what the fuck the Talbert Files were and confirm that they were fake. The person who was pushing this to be true at the time was receiving a lot of hate over it since it was confirmed to be fake. So I just wanted to say that if you somehow find this person, please don't harass them about it or anything. It's just really funny to say the word Talbert now.
I heard Talbert.
Get the fuck out of here, dude. Around the same time this whole Talbert debacle was going on, there was also a movement to have Pinky Pills, the artist, fired from the franchise due to similar allegations Lady Fizzy was accused of. Once again, Spring Popo on the FNAF subreddit made a huge mega thread of evidence with proof supporting Pinky Pills of being an art tracer, having really weird taboo sexual fantasies, drawing nude art of Mona who is confirmed to be a minor, and even fucking admitting to herself to Scott Cawthon. What the fuck? This literally isn't even the tip of the iceberg of all the weird shit she has done. So no wonder there's a movement for her to be fired trending on Twitter. A bit after Scott made a post about the Talbert Files, he then made a post regarding Pinky Pills on May 2nd, saying that she would be staying in the franchise to do work, which, and I quote, he says, "Again, I hope the fan base will be receptive to this. I know that I've needed second chances again in my own life, so I try to give them when I can. That's not always possible, but I think in this case it can be." Interesting. Now let's look at the upvotes and comments.
Oh no, bro.
I kid you not even a day later, Scott then made another post regarding the situation about Pinky Pills, and all he had to say that was she ended up making the decision herself to move away from the franchise. That was it. Well, thank fucking God. There was now a deleted tweet from Pinky Pills of her addressing the situation via a video, but I couldn't take it seriously because in the video not only is she crying, but for some reason she was playing with a Chica plushie while talking about the situation and crying, so it just seems like you're watching an SML knockoff having a mental breakdown. Well, that was definitely one of the May seconds of all time. Certified Pinky Pill, certified pedophile. The same month, Scott would also announce the creation of a Twitter account with the handle @FNAF_ScottGames, but it would only then make its first post on June 18th, revealing the icon for the 10th anniversary as well as a schedule of things being released from August 1st to August 8th. The day after that post, the account would announce the full lineup for the week. On August 1st, My Pop Goes, one of the entries from the fanverse, would be published. On August 2nd, Nixon would release a demo for The Joy of Creation, been changed from being the Ignited collection. On August 3rd, a new FNAF interactive novel titled VIP would be released for free. On August 4th, there's going to be a special announcement from Steelwool. On August 5th, Doc would release his second interview with Scott Cawthon. On August 6th, a new collab would be revealed. By the time I'm writing/recording this script, it still has not been August 6th, so please be Fortnite, please. On August 7th, a demo of a game from Click Team called 5 Laps at Freddy's will be released, which is theorized to be a racing game spin-off. Then finally, on August 8th, Into the Pit would finally be released. And with that finally out of the way, That was 10 entire years of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Hello once again, theorists. Welcome to Madman Please.
To say that Five Nights at Freddy's is just a simple horror game franchise would be a world record understatement. From a horror game that was just being created by one failed game developer to support his family, to now being a multi-million-dollar franchise with tons of games, books, merch, a movie with a sequel in the works, and most importantly, millions of people in countless sub-communities forming one big fan base. Five Nights at Freddy's has not only changed my life, but the lives of countless others. It has given people opportunities that wouldn't be there had it not been for this franchise. I hold this series so close to me because it truly has stuck with me no matter what. Even if I start losing interest or gaining it again, it has provided me with an outlet to just be myself, meet people I would have never met without it, discover things about myself I probably would have never known otherwise. By the off chance that Scott somehow sat through this entire video, I just want to say, well, sorry for my language throughout this entire video, but also thank you for everything. Thank you for all the memories, opportunities, enjoyment, happiness, and so much more you have given people. In a weird butterfly effect sort of way, I wouldn't be here in this spot talking about spooky animatronics I love for hours if it wasn't for you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Scott Cawthon. Welp, that's finally it. Over 74 pages, 35,000 words, and countless days where I've stayed up more than I should have. I sincerely hope you all have enjoyed this video. Before I end this video, I want to give a special thanks to a few friends of mine and inspirations that have helped me along the way with this video. Special thanks to MR Springs for helping me with some of the information gathered for this video, mostly the merch stuff, Xenon the Fox and Chazington for appearing as a special cameo, Econex for helping me a lot with the earlier bits of this script, and finally, Sagan Hawks and Naxa for their videos being a really good source of information for some of these parts. I really couldn't have gone as in-depth as I wanted to without them, so go check out their channels and their videos. Even more thanks to some other friends of mine for providing moral support. Xylo, Krabby, Frankie, Bethy, Sunny, Dags, Quinn, and so many more I just can't name right now. And of course, thank you, the viewer, for getting to the end of the video. If you liked this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you loved it, as I have more interesting videos coming out in the future. And of course, tell me what you liked, disliked, topics I missed, or what other topics I should cover in the comments below. But hey, I think my time is finally up. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be on my way now. Stay safe, and see ya. Okay, but who the fuck is Talbert?